It was scheduled to expire last month for some Venezuelans, but had been extended by a federal judge. Also, just getting word that a phone call between President Trump and Russia's President Putin has ended. Russian reports saying it lasted more than 2 hours as the president pushes for an end to the war in Ukraine. Vice President J.D. Vance reiterating to reporters yesterday the U.S. is willing to walk away without progress soon.
Yeah, look, the president's been very clear. This is not the United States is not going to spin its wheels here. We want to see outcomes.
Russian state media says President Putin describes today's call as useful and informative. President Trump also planning a call with Ukraine's president, with some reports he may have spoken to him before the Putin call. Amnesty International says it will redouble efforts to expose human rights violations by Russia after the group was banned by Russia, accused of backing Ukraine and classified as an undesirable organization, meaning anyone working with them or funding them in Russia could face up to 5 years in prison. Just getting word, humanitarian aid trucks have entered Gaza, cleared for the first time in nearly 3 months, even as Israel continues a ramped-up offensive.
With his military's latest offensive, Operation Gideon's Chariot, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his forces will control all of Gaza, at the same time allowing a limited amount of food to cross the border. Netanyahu says he's partially ended a 10-week blockade in response to pressure from international allies.
Fox's Jonathan Savage, the UN aid chief, calling for a regular flow of aid to reduce looting with commercial goods to complement the humanitarian response. America is listening to Fox News.
This is Joe Cordell of Cordell & Cordell. Cordell & Cordell is the largest family law firm in the country, with over 35 years of helping clients navigate divorce. That does give us certain advantages, for example, in experience and resources. But being big doesn't mean less personal or less local. Our attorneys live and work in your community, and as neighbors, they understand the challenges your families face. Cordell & Cordell, a partner you can count on.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements. 600 Kelwood, St. Louis. CordellCordell.com.
Hey, it's Mike Rowe, and if you want to do business with a company that actually stands for something, switch to Pure Talk. I did. Sure, I appreciate being on America's most dependable 5G network with unlimited talk and text for just $20 a month, but what I really appreciate is Pure Talk's commitment to our military and to our skilled workforce. That matters to me. Save 50% off your first month when you dial pound 250 and say keyword Mike Rowe. Pure Talk, a wireless company that actually stands for something.
Air Comfort Service, heating, cooling, and insulation. Weather.
Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
Tons of rain and thunderstorms over the next 48 hours. Periods of rain and thunderstorms going through our Monday afternoon. Heavy rain again possible. It's humid. Some storms could be strong to severe. 78. Showers and thunderstorms tonight. Periods of heavy rain. 66 Tuesday. Showers and storms. 79. It all fades away on Wednesday. This is 97.1 FM Talk. Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. One question I'm always asked is, how did you become the largest injury firm in the world with over 1,000 attorneys and $25 billion in verdicts and settlements? One way was our financial strength. Medical malpractice is the third leading cause of death in America. To prosecute a typical case costs up to $250,000 in case cost. We advance them all. Product liability cases can have similar costs with an army of lawyers on the other side. Automobile insurance companies have the resources to fight. Guess what? So do we. Many law firms simply may not have the financial firepower to work up your case the way you deserve. And we don't charge by the hour. No recovery, no fee. If you have a question about your case or wish to become a client, go to forthepeople.com on your mobile device or computer. 24/7. It's that easy. Morgan & Morgan. Injured? Dial pound law or visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
If you've listened to 97.1 FM Talk, you've heard of Doug Voss of Voss Financial and Safe Money Radio, as he has been a staple as the financial expert on the station for many years. You can hear him on Safe Money Radio every Saturday at 2, right here on 97.1 FM Talk, and you can talk to Doug Voss directly. Here's his number. Call Doug at 844-676-SAFE. That is 844-676-7233. Doug Voss is a registered representative. Securities offered through DHL Securities, LLP, member FINRA and SIPC.
Brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Progressive can help you protect your home, auto, boat, motorcycle, ATV, RV, and more. And if something wasn't mentioned that you had in mind, find out if it can be covered at Progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Because it probably can be.
That is exactly what I needed to hear.
Thank God someone here knows what they're talking about.
That's us. That's right. Gotta love this
Right? You need to take the time and get the full picture.
Oh, yeah, this is the moment you have been waiting for.
Don't get me wrong, I love the ladies. I mean, they rev my engine, but they don't belong in the newsroom.
Annie's out. Ryan and Brad are in.
Goodness sake, kid. Keep your voice down. Your father's listening to the radio.
This is the Mannie Frey Show.
You're listening to the Annie Frey Show, but it's by the boys. I don't have a voice. Thank you, Brad and Ryan. I appreciate you. And guys, I'm coming back as soon as I possibly can.
Yeah, that's Annie Frey from the Annie Frey Show, but this is the Mannie Frey Show, so we're not going to hear a lot from Annie today. She sounds like that, and we had a long discussion this morning trying to decide, can we get you in here? She said, I don't think I can.
She wanted to be here.
She's trying, and we all said, yes, come in, but when she sent us a sample of her voice, we're like, no. You should stay home. It's been a rough weekend for Annie. It's up and down. Like, she was gone, Wednesday or Thursday of last week, and we filled in, and then kind of came back, and now it's just gone again. So hopefully she'll be back tomorrow. Our YouTube live chat poll today is, were you affected by Friday's weather, yes or no? Very simple question, but we want to hear your stories, and we're going to be talking about that throughout the day. Of course, especially if you're right in the midst of something, we want to hear from you because it was widespread. Obviously, if you were listening to us on Friday, you heard that we were kind of scrambling, figuring out, are we even on air for half the time? Because there were EAS alerts going off. We're talking about various subjects, but we're looking out the window just like you, trying to get old Dave Murray, going, what is happening? Because that thing popped up really fast. Now, there's a little bit of a warning ahead of time. We got a couple texts that there was some stuff moving in, but we didn't know it was going to be like that. So we were, of course, scrambling just like you were to cover it and try to be a source of information. But yeah, I don't know about you, Brad, but my house, my family, we were completely unaffected.
Yeah, same for us, fortunately, because we still haven't recovered from the March 14th storms. We're still trying to get siding and whatnot back on our house. Yeah. So, but whenever we saw that, I was sitting here and, we were watching out the windows. We have two big windows to my right. If you're watching on the stream, I'm pointing out that direction. But we were watching out there, and the sky turned dark, and then it turned green, and then there were branches on the ground, and there was a lot going on outside.
We can see in one direction here.
We can only see the park that is to the west of St. Louis, so it looks westward out St. Louis.
So we can only see one little area, and there's trees. So the reporting we can give is much more based on radar and information than what we were looking at. But we were looking, and we couldn't see anything. But there was apparently a tornado right outside of here.
Yeah, about a mile west.
If we were higher up in the building, we would have been able to see over those trees and see it.
Yep. Sean Malone from down the hall, he went up to the top of the building and actually shot a video from the top of our building, and you can see it. It's astonishing. It is wild.
And so we know that a lot of people were affected and continue to be affected. We'll get into some of those stories, and I think we're actually going to open up the phone lines later in the show. Of course, right now you can share your story on our YouTube live chat where the poll is, were you affected by Friday's weather? I'm kind of curious to see how many people were directly affected because that's pretty much what we're asking there, yes or no. In the meantime, big news this weekend. I'm going to play the Fox News radio report. You've probably heard this already.
His office says former President Biden was seen last week by doctors after urinary symptoms, and they found a prostate nodule. Now they say he's been diagnosed with prostate cancer, and some of those cancer cells have spread to the bone. His office said while this represents a more aggressive form of the disease, the cancer appears to be hormone sensitive, which allows for effective management. The Mayo Clinic says prostate cancer is one of the most common types of cancer, and it often grows slowly.
Grows slowly. Okay, so that would mean that in the first 100 days of Trump's term here, we're a little bit past that now, that would be a astonishing surprise to know that he suddenly found out he had stage 4 cancer, prostate cancer. Brad, this is something that you and I talked about off air before the weekend, okay? So I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but there was a report that hit before this that said that doctors were looking and found a nodule on Joe Biden's prostate. And at that point, you came to me, Brad, and said, okay, this is going to be something bigger.
Yep.
And you were 100% right. I didn't think much of it because that report was just kind of, it's out there. We'll see what happens. But Brad came into my office and goes, this report is going to become something much bigger than it is. And you were exactly right. This is oddly quickly unfolding to be what looks like a real legitimate scandal. And there's so many scandals that it's like, well, just throw it on the pile. But these are really big. And I've said before that Joe Biden's mental decline alone was such a scandal because you didn't know what he was aware of, because you knew he probably wasn't making big decisions on his own, which means who was. And then you have Ed Martin, who was on the show last Wednesday, who's now the U.S. He's the Deputy Assistant AG for the United States.
He's pardon attorney.
So he is the guy who's looking into the AutoPen stuff.
Yes.
He's a St. Louis/Missouri guy, so we're going to have him on the show regularly, but he's now in charge of the AutoPen possible scandal. We're going to find out about that as it's happening from him. So it's like all these things are hitting at the same time, which makes it a little bit strange when a report comes out like this that looks like they would have known this for a long time. And I don't know that for sure. I'm not a doctor. But Brad was very nice to me, and he pulled a whole bunch of clips from doctors who were on the shows this weekend. Here's one of them, and I think this is from MSNBC or CNN, Brad.
This one here is News Nation.
News Nation. Okay, so this is urologist Dr. David Schusterman talking about how a diagnosis like stage 4 prostate cancer would come about.
It's very unlikely that someone could get annual checkups and not notice a PSA elevation over the past, but this is what I typically would see in a VA hospital where a patient hasn't had medical attention in 10 years, presents to an emergency room with bone pain, and then they find that it's metastatic prostate cancer. But in the modern age of medicine, especially the fact that he was a former president, he had intensive state-of-the-art, care where we can see prostate cancer, 10 years in the past. So this is, it's very unusual to hear that someone has prostate cancer where they're annually being followed up. And the fact that we just find it at a Gleason 9 is just pretty much unheard of in this day and age of medicine.
So he's not alone in saying that there are a lot of doctors, especially in the field of urology. Of course, this would be prostate cancer, that have said, "Look, this just doesn't happen. You don't find out that you have stage 4 prostate cancer." What he said is, unless you haven't been to the doctor in 10 years, and this is the president of the United States who had a doctor on call all the time. So we are talking about a scandal now. We're talking about a scandal where it does look like they for sure knew that he had cancer. How bad it was or how fast it's gotten worse, we don't know. But certainly, according to the medical community, this should not have been a surprise, especially at the stage that it's at. So you have one scandal that's physical with the cancer that they probably have known about for a long time. You have another that's mental, that you knew that he was in serious decline both mentally then and now physically for years, possibly. Certainly mentally. We all watched that happen. But here's why it looks like they probably knew as early as 2022 that Joe Biden may have had cancer because, as you know, he would let things slip all the time. He'd just say random stuff, so that they started doing less and less media. But here is him slipping and saying that he had cancer in 2022.
And because it was a 4-lane highway that was accessible, my mother drove us, and rather than us be able to walk. And guess what? The first frost, you know what was happening? You had to put on your windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer. And why can't, for the longest time, Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
That's why I and so many other people I know have cancer Oh, you did?
I remember when this happened, and I remember people looking at it, it's like, oh, here's another incidence of Joe Biden lying about some sort of disease that he had, because he had this reputation of saying stuff that wasn't true, but it was there to kind of be, to make him more relatable, and that, it's like, I was like you, I lost my son in Iraq too. And it's like, well, no, you lost your son to brain cancer, which was incredibly tragic, but that's not accurate on how it did. So a lot of people looked at this when he said this and said, oh, well, here he is talking about a disease that he didn't have.
I remember that too. And you're right, he would do that. He would say things, he'd be talking to a trucker and say, well, I know your job. I was a trucker for 3 years.
Yeah, with like, Large Marge or whatever it was. And
you're like, dude, that's not true. That's verifiably not true. And so you knew that something was off mentally. So we just kind of threw that into that category.
Yeah.
But now you go, wait a minute.
Well, maybe
he actually knew that he had been diagnosed with cancer at that point.
Well, like what that urologist said earlier, it is almost impossible for this not to have been caught sooner. And so I know the speculation is out there. Are they releasing this because now the books are coming out about his mental decline? Are they trying to get people to stop talking about that? Are they trying to move the conversation along? Is this something that came out that other, like, we have been lied to, manipulated, and gaslighted by the media for so long that now we look at this and then we say, oh, well, now we start backtracking and any little conspiracy theory now are popping up.
Yep.
But questions need to be asked and answered.
Well, you said it about the timing. The timing of this is very strange, and it becomes highly questionable as to why now they're releasing this. Because are they trying to avoid the conversation about Biden's serious mental decline because of the book, because of Jake Tapper's book that's coming out, but also because they released the Hur tapes. So this was the special counsel, Robert Hur, who, what year was that? That was 23?
Yeah.
That this came out that, and this was the whole elderly man with good intentions but a poor memory or whatever it was.
This investigation almost ran parallel with the raid on Trump's property for classified documents.
Because it was the same issue.
Right.
They raided Trump and found that you held documents you shouldn't have after you're president. Well, they found out that Biden had done the same thing, and all these other presidents and vice presidents had done the same thing. And they had the full force of the law against Donald Trump. But when it came to Joe Biden, who is currently president, so that might have changed things a little bit, but when it came to Joe Biden, they said, he didn't really know. So the whole mental problem that he was having was not just a scandal because you could see it happening in the auto pen and now all the things we know, but it also was then culpability for crimes.
Well, that's just it. When he would have kept these documents, he wouldn't have had mental decline. And what Robert Hur was saying was that we can't prosecute this case because it wouldn't be a good case to prosecute because of how he would appear to the jury.
And he was the current president, which I will acknowledge does change things. Here is the portion of the tape, the Hur tape, that has come out that's making all of the waves.
Where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively working on?
Well, I don't know. This is what, 2017, 18, that area?
Yes, sir.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying. And so
I'm just going to stop it there because you know what this sounds like. There's a whole bunch more.
Yeah.
But this is private audio of this interrogation, basically. Robert Hur is very, very nice to him.
Mm-hmm.
The media backlash we'll get to probably in a later segment about how they talked about Robert Hur being, well, he's a Republican plant. He's like, this is your own DOJ.
The stuff that Adam Schiff said was wild.
I mean, it's unbelievable how much they just lie. I mean, they don't know what they're talking about. Sometimes they probably are just making things up because at the moment it sounds like, yeah, that's what we need to say. Other times you're like, they probably know this is all false, so they're saying it anyway, which is super, super immoral and just a lie. And we've got all that audio, but we don't have enough time in this segment to get to it. We're going to come back to it. The weird thing is when you play the Her tapes, I don't know if you listening had a chance to sit down, like listen to some of the clips that came out this weekend of those Robert Hur special investigation clips with Joe Biden. You're not missing anything. If you didn't listen to them, it's the same way he sounded in a lot of interviews. So it's not shocking to hear him just veer off and start telling some story about his son that has nothing to do with what's happening.
Nothing to do. Get the dates wrong, the times wrong by years, not even days or months, but years.
And also the topic has nothing to do with the conversation that is happening currently. So again, no surprise there, but it's all new audio. So you're going, this is part of the investigation. And the transcripts existed of these things. Maybe not the audio, but the transcripts. And Brian Kilmeade said this morning, they had altered those transcripts now here in the audio. He looked through them. And they did not look the same on paper as they sounded.
Yeah.
So it's just so many layers of scandal that are breaking constantly. And if their whole goal was to try to change the conversation, they have failed, because the conversation is just getting more intense and deeper as we go when you realize how long this has probably been going on. Speaking of how long this has been going on, we're long in this segment. We have a guest coming up, though, that I'm looking forward to. I know Annie was really looking forward to talking to Gianno Caldwell. He is the founder of the Caldwell Institute for Public Safety. He's a Fox News political analyst, but he's an Illinois guy. And so he's got a book that's coming out called The Day My Brother Was Murdered, My Journey Through America's Violent Crime Crisis. And of course, this affects us here in St. Louis, but he's from Chicago. So we're going to talk to him next about that topic. Stick around. More of the Mannie Frey Show coming up next.
It's all right. Have a good time, 'cause it's all right.
Annie's out, Ryan and Brad are in. This is the Mannie Frey Show.
When the lights are low, when you move it slow, it feels like a moan, 'cause it's all right. Whoa, it's all right. And now listen to the beat and kind of tap your feet. Yeah, you got so everybody.
One of the things with running is I want to enjoy the run, but I never made it very far because the arches in my feet just killed me. So when I got to the end of my rope and I said I have to do something to get rid of the pain, and a couple people recommended the Good Feet store to me. I loved how I could go in and get a free personalized arch support fitting. They put that time, that work, that effort into helping you find the right arch supports. And you can walk around the store with these in your shoes and try them out before you purchase them. So after I got my arch supports, the arches on my feet stopped hurting and the pain literally instantly went away. So if you have pain, go. Find a Good Feet store and go. There is an answer. Find the simple solution that will get rid of your pain. I'm Rondi, and that's my Good Feet story.
See how Good Feet arch supports work for you before you buy with a free fitting and test walk at the Good Feet store.
Visit one of our 2 locations, Creve Coeur and Shiloh, Illinois, and at goodfeet.com.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-6986. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-575-6986. That's 800-575-6986. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
You're listening to the Mannie Frey Show live from the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation Studio. Save now with 2024 pricing and Carrier Cool Cash rebates up to $1,700 on a new HVAC system. For details, visit aircomfortservice.com.
You're listening to The Annie Frey Show. The Annie Frey Show is streaming online. Watch us live on YouTube and subscribe.
If there is something in this city that I have caused to get worse, name it, because I can't think of anything.
Well, that's Mayor Brandon Johnson. We have a guest on the line right now who probably has a lot to say about that. Gianno Caldwell. You probably recognize him, Fox News political analyst. He's got a book called The Day My Brother Was Murdered, My Journey Through America's Violent Crime Crisis. And we're going to talk about that because you're from Chicago, Gianno. Thanks for being here.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate the ability to talk about my hometown.
Yeah, and Annie is the host of the Annie Frey Show, and we've been communicating with you that she unfortunately has no voice today, so she was really looking forward to talking to you, so hopefully we can have you back on when she's here sometime. But let's talk about the story that really has sort of come together in your book. This comes from your 18-year-old brother, Christian, who was gunned down on the south side of Chicago. Give us kind of a background of how this happened.
Well, my brother Christian was murdered, innocent kid murdered on June 24th, 2022 on the south side of Chicago, as you mentioned. My life changed forever after that, many of my family members as well. When discussing the book, in it, I take stories from across the nation, people who lost their lives due to violent crime in some way, shape, or form. And we write about what happened to them, what their life was like, the people who did it. We talk about solutions to the issues. I implement commentary from people like Sean Hannity, Dr. Drew Pinsky, John Walsh from America's Most Wanted, and we tell their stories because everyone knows it's bad out there. You're playing Chicago sound bites right now. People in Chicago know that many are in fear of their lives. As it is often said, this person was murdered because they were at the wrong place at the wrong time. But being at the wrong place at the wrong time in Chicago could be you laying in your bed and a bullet comes through your window. Nowhere is safe there, and it's unfortunate.
Gianno, what is the story? This is 2022. Your brother is 18 years old. How did this happen to him?
Yeah, he was standing in front of a restaurant, I believe it was, on that 24th of that morning. And he was standing next to some folks. He wasn't the target. And they wanted a guy who apparently had these gangs had a fight on Facebook of some sort, and they were after the guy. So my brother was standing next to him. They shot the guy, multiple times. My brother may have been hit, I think, twice, but he was the only one that didn't live. They also shot a young lady as well. So it's just like, in places like Chicago, these kind of things happen on a regular occurrence. I write about it in my book, The Day My Brother Was Murdered. A 6-month-old was murdered in Chicago on that same day, miles from my brother, not that far away. This is what has happened to places that vote in particular elected officials, particularly progressive or very liberal, who believe in allowing criminals to have free reign. That's when they implement policies like, for example, in Chicago, a no-chase policy, where police have to call into their supervisors in order to pursue a suspect on foot or in vehicle. By the time you get the supervisor on the line, I'm sure the suspect is already gone. Or the Safety Act, which I'm sure you have talked to your listeners about many times before, which is really shaping Illinois into Gotham City, especially places like Chicago, where law and order doesn't seem to be something that Mayor Brandon Johnson respects, and it reflects in his poll numbers, considering the fact that he's the lowest polling mayor in Chicago history.
Incredible. Gianno Caldwell, founder of the Caldwell Institute for Public Safety, also Fox News political analyst, and his book is called The Day My Brother Was Murdered, My Journey Through America's Violent Crime Crisis. Gianno, when I first started here at 97.1, it was Saturday mornings, and I was basically just a news reporter for Top of the Hour. And I can't tell you, I would look through the AP stories that came through overnight, and every night, this would have been every Friday night, it was just murder after murder after murder, to the point that you don't even report on it because it's just the same thing. And so the problem is so much worse than it even appears, because the reporting just becomes numb to it too, where you're like, look, I can't just report that there's, another 5 murders last night. But our politicians, I know what's happening in St. Louis because we're here, but in Chicago, are the politicians, the leaders of the city, are they even paying it lip service anymore, or is it just kind of like, we're not even talking about it?
To your point, I don't believe it's just those who gather the news have become numb to it. The people in the city have become numb to it.
Yeah.
There's so much potential in the city of Chicago, but unfortunately, it's scattered throughout graveyards throughout the city. That's where the potential is largely, because people are being killed day in and day out. You ask, do the politicians care? I would say no. Why? Because they know that their people are being murdered. There's black bodies littered throughout the streets of Chicago. They've been derelict in their duty, and they've enabled crime. Look at people like the former district attorney there, the Cook County prosecutor, Kim Foxx. How many cases did she blow off and say, hey, we're going to drop these cases, I think it was over maybe 40, 50,000, including rape and murder. Like, these are very serious issues, and the elected officials there have paid lip service. Maybe they say they want to fix the issue, but then they vote in more liberal policies that enable literal death in that city. And it's quite unfortunate, I must say.
Gianno, one of the things you talk about in your book is black-on-black crime. These are topics that have been taboo, but I'm encouraged to see people just saying, look, I don't care that they're taboo. We have to talk about these things if we're going to solve them. How do you address that topic, both in the book and just in life?
Well, if we're going to use another example of your neighboring place, Chicago, most of the people that are being murdered there are black. Most of the offenders are black. And we're talking about black men murdering black men. And that's where we are. And yes, it's been a taboo subject, but the truth of the matter is you can't solve a problem if people don't talk about the problem, if you don't try to understand the problem, if you don't try to decipher what the solutions are to that problem. Those who just choose to capitulate to political correctness are just a part of the problem. And that's been the issue. They want to be the language police when the facts are just the facts. And, I hate to say it, but it is true. My community is upside down because of our own people hunting down each other and killing each other. Now, does that mean that I should just put shame on them and not give them any hope? Absolutely not. You can change things around if you begin to vote for people, perhaps Republicans, because there's been a one-party city and a one-party state for many, many years, who believe in law and order, who are willing to implement policies to reverse things like recidivism. You want to bring companies back into those cities, fill those jobs. And what happens when you have violence out of control, you get people like the billionaire founder, a hedge fund founder, what's his name? He moved to Miami. I can't think of his name right now. It escapes me. But
we're nodding. Like we know what you're talking about, though. Yeah.
Yeah. You get major companies that leave, and there's direct and indirect negative job impact, and that's where we come to in these particular cities. It hurts everyone.
Okay, you mentioned solutions a couple times.
Ken Griffin is his name.
Ken Griffin. Thank you.
Yeah.
What are and you can really approach this question from a couple of different angles. You could say, what is the solution for the average person who lives in Illinois, or lives in any city really, but lives in Illinois, Chicago? What can they do? But also, what could a politician do differently at the state level, at the governor's level, at the mayor's level?
I mean, twofold. As a citizen, I would, especially if you're in a high crime area, I would go get a gun, get trained, get licensed, and maybe you want to get licensed first, but, in the reverse order, be able to protect yourself, be aware of your surroundings at all times, especially if you're in one of those high crime areas. As a politician, what could you do? You can not defund the police, as an example. I mean, that sounds like a rational, logical thing, right? Am I wrong about that?
It seems pretty simple.
Defund the police. Yeah, I mean, it should be very simple. You should hold criminals accountable. You can use the current laws on the books, or you can add more time on that as a solution. Additionally, we can talk about job opportunities in those areas. We can talk about financial literacy. We can talk about literacy in general. We can talk about education in our schools. We can talk about cutting off the school-to-prison pipeline. These are all important issues in which I tackle in my book, The Day My Brother Was Murdered, My Journey Through America's Violent Crime Crisis, because it was a needed discussion. And quite unfortunate that my brother, Christian, his legacy isn't him having children and having graduated college and done well for himself and raised a family. It's unfortunate that that's not going to be his legacy. He had no kids, and he was going to go to college soon, but that didn't happen. But his legacy will be the Caldwell Institute for Public Safety, me going after George Soros-funded prosecutors, ensuring that they are not reelected in many of these jurisdictions, that we got safety and security in our neighborhoods, that we're holding politicians accountable, and there's a bullet pulpit where people's lives can be saved. If you're interested in information on the Caldwell Institute for Public Safety, I ask you to go to caldwellinstitute.org. Again, that's caldwellinstitute.org. For anyone who might have experienced a family tragedy, we have information there in our tabs that you can learn how to pitch a story to the press, because oftentimes there's so many of these murders, people are fighting for press time just to get justice for their family. If you're going through a mental health crisis, we have a manual put together by Dr. Drew Pinsky, which people might know from Celebrity Rehab, Teen Mom, and other places. If you want to learn how to work with the police and the prosecutors, we have manuals written by police and prosecutors on how to work with these organizations to best advance the case of justice for your family. There's a lot of material there, and I encourage people to go to caldwellinstitute.org.
Well, I appreciate everything you're doing, Gianno Caldwell. The book, which will release on June 24th, is called The Day My Brother Was Murdered, My Journey Through America's Violent Crime Crisis. Hopefully we can catch up with you again, okay?
You're very good. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much. And again, Annie, hopefully we'll be able to catch up with Gianno Caldwell. He's a guy that you might notice. I mean, when you see him, we've got his picture up on our live stream right now. You say, oh, yeah, I recognize him from Fox News. He's a political analyst on there. So you probably have seen him or heard him before, Gianno Caldwell. But you may not have known that he's an Illinois guy. So we like connecting with him. And I just love that people like him are there, out there. Like he talked about the Caldwell Institute for Public Safety. Like that's the stuff that gets on the ground and makes a difference.
The thing that I really like and admire about Mr. Caldwell is that he suffered a serious tragedy. And rather than just rage and yell about it, he actually is doing something about it. He's making moves. He set up an institute. And he went through a litany of things that if you need information on, if you're trying to figure something out, he's got all that on the Caldwell Institute. So it's caldwellinstitute.org. Go check that out. He's doing great things.
We had limited time with him. If we had a little bit longer, or maybe next time we talk to him, I would like to know if he thinks the culture in Chicago is changing. And I do mean the political culture.
Yeah.
Obviously, the culture needs to change. That's a big, big conversation. But a lot of the stuff, you can see it. We always say politics is downstream from culture. I always add that culture is downstream from spirituality, morality. But it's amazing to watch. And so we've always approached that way. We've said, well, you need to solve the spirituality, morality, or the culture before you can solve the political. But you really need all of them. You can't just do one. There's the problems are too big to approach them slowly.
Yeah, he mentioned this, that you get to a point where the people become numb to it, and you actually need the government, you need the police, which is a function of the government, to actually step in and start doing things. You can't wait for people to just stop. You actually need to start prosecuting crime. You need to send people to jail who do illegal things. And so what that does then is that creates a disincentive for people who aren't there morally, who don't have a problem robbing, shooting, and stealing and whatever. It creates a disincentive for them to actually go out and do that. So it's like a Band-Aid, a tourniquet. You stop the bleeding by enforcing the law. And then on the other side, simultaneously, then you're working more morally speaking, trying to get people to understand the wrong nature in this, why this is bad, why this isn't good for society, and to get people, the culture itself, to shift and push back against that sort of behavior and ostracize that behavior on the outside.
What I would like to know is, just based on his experience, and he's obviously there, he's doing a lot of work, are all the social media clips we see of people showing up, the black community in Chicago, showing up at city council meetings and yelling at Brandon Johnson and saying, look, you got to stop this illegal immigration nonsense. The crime's out of control, not just associated with illegal immigration, but crime in general. What are you going to do about it? And is that really a groundswell that's happening? Is he seeing that? Or is that social media where you're just seeing a couple people and you think, oh, this represents a lot more? Because social media isn't always reality. I would really like to know that. Of if you're in Chicago, are you noticing a difference among people who either typically, A, would have never spoken out about these things and now are, or people who would have just been pretty much like across the board straight ticket Democrat voters saying we need a political change to this too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the answer to that. So I'd like to hear him talk about that. Hopefully we can have him back, Brad, because I know Annie would like to. Well, we're going to take a short break. Today's YouTube live chat poll, a lot of people chiming in on this, and we appreciate that, especially with your stories. This is one where we'd like to hear from you and what you experienced. Were you affected by Friday's weather? Were you surprised by it like we all were? And then this weekend's been a lot of cleanup and a lot of bad reports coming out. People lost their lives. We would like to know if you were affected by this. It's a yes or no question on YouTube, but you can leave us a comment there. A long comment's okay today. We'll read through those when we can, and probably take phone calls on that subject at some point today. Haven't decided when we're going to do that yet, based on guests. But coming up next, it is going to be Wiggins America, led by Brad. Stick around.
Annie's out, Ryan and Brad are in. This is the Mannie Frey Show.
Guys, it's time to take charge of your health with my friends at Victory Men's Health. Mark Cox here. I already love what they do at Victory. They do hormone optimization, sexual health, weight loss, even vitamin deficiencies. Now they're offering specialty cardiovascular testing and even early detection cancer screening. Visit them at one of their 4 great locations, now in Sunset Hills, Town and Country, O'Fallon, Missouri, and O'Fallon, Illinois. Tell them Mark Cox sent you. Go to victorymenshealth.com.
Retirement statements just hit mailboxes, and for many, the shock is real. Some investors lost 20% or more in just the first quarter. If you're close to retirement, that's more than a dip. It's a danger. But here's what most advisors won't tell you. Gold was up over 30% during the same time. That's a 60% swing. And in retirement, that kind of gap can change everything. So compare your Q1 statement to gold's performance. Then call Noble Gold Investments. Noble Gold specializes in helping people protect what they've earned with real assets like gold and silver. If you're tired of watching your nest egg shrink, it may be time for a change. And right now, when you open a qualified account, you'll receive a free 10-ounce silver American flag bar. Compare and call 877-646-5347. That's 877-646-5347. Or visit noblegoldinvestments.com. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals, including gold, involves risks. Consult with your tax attorney or financial professional before making an investment decision.
Why do the national tax resolution firms need the tiny fine print at the bottom of all their TV ads? Hi, this is Lance Drury with the Lance Drury Law Firm. You don't hear fast-talking disclaimers in our ads because the claims we make are 100% transparent. The Lance Drury Law Firm primarily focuses on one thing, IRS problems, and we're regulated by the Bar Association, and we have a AAA rating with the Better Business Bureau. IRS issues are serious legal issues. The Lance Drury Law Firm has helped thousands of clients navigate the best resolution plans, and we tell you up front exactly how much it'll cost. Tax resolution law is all we do. So before you send money to some out-of-town, high-pressure salesperson, give us a call at the Lance Drury Law Firm, located right here in St. Louis. Call today to schedule your free consultation with me, 314-260-6120, or visit LanceDruryLaw.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
Hey, it's Mark Reardon. If you're nearing retirement or already retired, call my friends Thomas Helbig and Bob Kershaw with the Retirement Advisory Group. They'll show you how linking to the market is much safer than owning the market for your retirement savings. They're the official financial advisors of my show. Go to retirementkey.com.
Today's YouTube live chat poll. Were you affected by Friday's weather? Man, that tornado was close. It was close. It was just a few blocks west of us, and we know that a lot of you in the listening area had storm damage, had effect from the storms that hit us. So what we want to know is, were you affected by Friday's weather? And if so, leave us a comment in the chat. So go to YouTube, vote in the poll, leave us a comment in the chat, tell us what your story is. We want to hear your story, and we might open the phones later. So be sure to call in, share with us your story from the storms on Friday. Today's The time is 12:45, and this time check is sponsored by Jerry Kelly Heating and Air Conditioning.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
TireRack.com.
The Mark Reardon Show.
Monday afternoon on The Mark Reardon Show, Mark will be back in studio hosting. He'll be discussing the latest updates on the big, beautiful bill and much more. It all starts after Fox News at 3.
The Mark Reardon Show. Weekdays from 3 to 6.
And dreaming of the West Coast. I don't feel down. You big jam. Big boots and a no suitcase.
You're listening to the Annie Frey Show, but it's by the boys. I don't have a voice. Thank you, Brad and Ryan. I appreciate you, and guys, coming back as soon as I possibly can.
Which could be tomorrow. I guess it just depends on how today and tonight goes. That's Annie, and she shared that with us so that we would know how bad her voice was. And that is why we are filling in today. Also, if you're wondering, the same exact thing has Ethan down. So Ethan's not here either. And lots of people around me, this could be part of the YouTube poll today, is how many people around you are sick? I don't remember this being a season, like late May, almost Memorial Day, where people get sick a lot, but there's something going around. And even last week we were talking, well, it took Annie out last Wednesday. And it's the same thing still today. Joe Concha was with us that day, and he goes, yeah, I'm getting it too. So I don't think it's just a St. Louis thing. I think it's all over the place. But anyway, we have the three of us, the Mannie Frey Show, even without Ethan here. So Ryan, Brad, and Drew, who has been on the show a few times, filling in. Always glad to see Drew. Let's do Wiggins America.
Wiggins! Oh! Wiggins!
So Brad's going to lead it, and he's going to nail it.
Yeah, I'm going to nail it. I'm going to juggle all these things. It's great. Ryan, we talked a little bit about this on Friday, and I felt a little bit bad because Annie said to be mean to you, and I asked you a question, and it was
Wait. She said to be mean?
Yeah, she said it on air right beforehand.
Oh, at least it was on air. If it was off air, I'd have been.
No. No.
Okay.
So the first thing that popped in my head was about your hairline, and that was uncalled for, and I didn't mean it like that. But I came across this article.
Oh, that's all I remember now.
Yeah. I came across this article, and I was like, millions of men just shouted out with joy. It says, did scientists just cure baldness? UCLA's new molecule could revolutionize hair growth.
Are you
interested?
Did scream when I saw that story.
All right, this interests you? What about you, Drew?
It definitely interests me. I'm 27. I'm already starting to lose my hair.
Are you really?
Yeah, dude.
Drew, I started about the same time.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
It's all. I mean,
it's
Brad's
everybody.
still like, you wouldn't look at Brad and go, "Oh, he's balding," but I've known Brad for enough years now to go, "Yeah, you're past 40."
Yeah, well, and if you knew me when I was 25, my hair would look way different too.
Well,
so
also, I think back in the day, it might like not to date you guys, but it might have been looked at a little differently. Like now, everything's like Instagram. You know, people are trying to like look their best. Like
you think it's harder now to.
I think
to
it's
lose
more
your hair.
acceptable before to be like balding.
I do too, because you look at somebody like Phil Collins, not now, but when he was popular, and you're like, that dude couldn't make it now. He's not attractive enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you have to be Harry Styles or whatever.
Listen, guys, it's not new. I mean, the article even says ancient Egyptians used to rub their bald heads with a mixture of dates, dog paw, and donkey's hoofs.
Okay.
So they would grind all this stuff up and they would rub it on their head, hoping that would help grow. Celtics, they used to use mice in a jar. I'm not really sure how that works. Native Americans turned to, is it yucca? Y-U-C-C-A? Yucca juice. So it's been a quest since men have had hair. So that's since people have been on Earth, men have been like, I don't want to lose my hair. I like my hair.
That's good to know.
That's fair.
People chiming in online saying that, first of all, let's pull a couple of these up, actually. Scooter says, definitely acceptable to shave your head. Have you considered that?
Me?
Yeah.
Not yet, no.
I have, and I look worse.
Oh, no.
I think I'm just going to wear hats a lot.
Yeah. Have you tried like any like like keeps or anything like that? Because that stuff works, but it's just expensive.
And it never stops.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got so many other random things that I have to do every day that I'm like, I can't keep up with that.
Yeah.
I just can't do it.
Well, and it doesn't actually always regrow. Sometimes
and it doesn't always
it
work.
just pause. It's a pause button. So
Yeah.
it's like if you're too far gone, well, it's like, well, it won't get any worse. And it's like, can it get any worse?
Yeah.
And Ender mentions Andre Agassi being cool.
Yeah, he was cool.
And he used to have a ton of hair. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden he showed up on the scene completely bald.
That he didn't have
And he's
any.
like, I'm still cool, though.
But
and he was so cool that he could just tell you he was cool. And you're like, that's cool.
Yeah, that guy's awesome.
Bobo Farms says toupees nowadays are incredible. I wouldn't know.
Bobo Farms is on something there because that's a new thing that's kind of circulating amongst Gen Zers.
Yeah, it is. What's up with that?
And like so much so you were talking about Instagram and stuff like that. There's reels all over the place of these different people cutting these guys' hair, shaving the middle section, gluing this tube on, and then next thing you know, these guys look like they never lost any hair. It is amazing how real some of that stuff looks. But the hair loss is caused by things that include aging, stress, hormonal imbalances, poor genetics, all these sorts of things. And no matter what, like medical science does, up to this point, they really haven't found anything to do it. But UCLA scientists now have identified a small molecule that, when prompted, can waken long, slumbering, but undamaged follicles. So the
follicles.
Yeah. Follicles?
Follicles.
Follicles.
Yeah.
Dang.
I like the word follicles a lot.
Follicles and
Yeah,
molecules.
Follicles. Yeah, they're molecules for your follicles. They're follicles. It's called PP405. But the idea is that
PP.
Thanks, Ryan. The idea is that your follicles are getting signals from a protein in your body that is stopping the hair from growing. It's just telling your follicles to stop. Don't do anything. So your hair is lazy, basically. And this molecule that they've found, PP405, it's supposed to block those proteins and then allow it to grow and allow your hair to start doing what your hair does.
So this is a very promising
Yeah.
study.
So this
but
isn't just like stop. This is.
Have they done human trials on this?
Well,
I thought I saw that they had when I briefly looked at the story a couple days ago.
Yeah. Let's see where it says that.
What else would they test it on?
And it was all say. Well, you could test it on mice. They test everything on mice.
Yeah. So you think they just grow hair?
So they're getting
they
ready.
grow human hair. Yeah.
So basically, this is a cream that you rub on your head. But they said that their next step.
Little mouse with a pompadour.
Yeah. It's like, man, that worked great.
That mouse looks awesome. He looks like Elvis. That one looks like David Lee Roth.
The next steps are the trials and approvals. So they haven't gone through human trials necessarily, but that's what's next. They said the thing is no product is going to work great for everybody. It's not going to be a one size fits all. But their hope is that the thing this will open up hair growth for people that didn't have any other options.
Here's what I need, and I think I've told this on the show before, that on my weekend show on Wiggins America, which obviously is not as widely listened to as the Annie Frey Show.
I listen every weekend.
I appreciate that. I mean, I have a lot of people who approach me to say they listen. I'm just saying this is a main day show, so I don't get as big a guest as Annie can get. That's just the nature of it. But I try. So one time, and this was 23, so not that long ago, I had Robert F. Kennedy booked to be on Wiggins America.
Yeah.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. No joke. Before he was, I don't think he had announced anything, like he wasn't running yet or anything.
Voice still intact.
No.
Okay.
He still sounded the same. But I had him booked. And I think looking back, they might have been like catfishing me a little bit, because right before the interview, they go, oh, Robert F. Kennedy can't be here today, but his publisher can. And I was like,
I got you.
Well, it's too late. So I interviewed the publisher, and it was good, but it was about his book, The Real Dr. Anthony Fauci, at the time. And so I feel like I'm telling you the story because I have a pretty tight connection with RFK. And I'm going to probably contact him through my various means now and tell him to
through his publisher?
Yeah, to approve this drug.
Okay.
So we'll all benefit from
Operation Warp Speed.
Still call it.
Do you know how they apply it? Is it like
it's a cream?
Oh, it's a
So,
cream.
yeah, so
you
you're
can
supposed to
choose
rub
where
it on your head at night before you go to bed, and it goes in there and blocks these proteins.
The chat's blowing up on this topic, so we got just a couple minutes left here. But one of the things that somebody said, I think it might have been Scooter, said that Trump made the comb over cool. And I had to disagree with that because Trump doesn't have a comb over.
No, he doesn't
have
a comb over.
We all thought that he did. But now you see that he doesn't, right?
You know that he doesn't. He let Jimmy Fallon tussle his hair.
But the wind will blow his hair up at times, and you can see that he has a hairline.
Yes.
He just combs it so strange.
Well, he lets it grow out really long, first of all, on top, and then he combs it like back.
So it is a comb over.
Yeah. But
it's just not a bald
he
comb over.
doesn't have a bald spot.
It's not the Purdue Gene Keady comb over.
Yeah, you don't get the hair blowing from one direction, and then you get the little crest of a turkey on the side where you got bald hair.
Even Elon Musk got a hair transplant.
Yeah,
he's open about it. He has to be.
Yeah.
Because you can see it.
I mean, if you got the hair now, there's no point of hiding the fact you got a hair transplant. You know?
Would you ever do a hair transplant?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I would do it too.
Yeah.
I would totally do it.
I would love to see Wiggins with hair, just like flowing.
Oh, yeah, because I'd let it grow.
Would you?
I'd flaunt it if I had it.
Would it be like down to your shoulders, you think?
How long?
Way longer. I'd go like to the floor.
Ryan's like, I would never cut my hair again.
I probably wouldn't.
Would you do the Brendan Donovan man bun? Or would you?
I would never do a man bun. Okay. I promise you that.
Even if it was like a samurai man bun?
Ooh, maybe. That'd be kind of cool. But it'd have to look like a samurai, not just in the hair.
Yeah.
I don't believe Wiggins wouldn't do a man bun. Do you believe that?
Well, listen, he's done some crazy things, and I think that if he had long flowing hair long enough to do a man bun, that Annie would eventually talk him into it for so many likes on the stream or to raise so much money for something. He would do it for a good cause.
Yeah.
That would absolutely hapen. I would say no, and then Annie would be like, why not? And I'm like, I don't know. She'd be like, well, do it.
You're doing it.
Okay.
I was like, okay.
When we get to 13,000 likes on the YouTube page, Ryan's going to do a man
kidding.
bun. I go, oh, okay, I guess I'm doing a man bun.
Well, we should say that anyway.
That's the way that stuff happens. A little behind the scenes, that's exactly how that stuff happens. There is never a conversation ahead of time.
It happens on air.
Yeah. All right, the YouTube live chat poll. Were you affected by Friday's weather, yes or no? We're going to try to connect with Stephen Moore, as we do every Monday, coming up next. And if we either don't talk to him there or maybe the segment afterwards, I think we're going to open the phones up. And if you had a real, a story where you were in the midst of any of these things, we'd like to hear from you in the next hour. So stick around. We will be right back.
I am still dreaming of your face.
The warm weather may have you thinking about your backyard. Let's make it better this year with Chesterfield Fence and Deck. Mention my name, Mark Cox, and get their special discount of the month for May, 48 months interest-free financing on your next outdoor project with Chesterfield Fence and Deck. Now, they do free in-home estimates, no obligation, free project design. They've got an extensive digital photo gallery of completed projects if you don't have something specific in mind. They could do beautiful wood or vinyl fencing, same with their decks. Those vinyl decks are maintenance-free, and they're fantastic. And, of course, maybe you're considering a custom sunroom, a custom screen room, pergolas, patios, retaining walls. They can do it all. And having their sign in your yard is a sign that you have the very best. Be sure and check them out online and tell them that Mark Cox sent you so you can get that 48 months interest-free financing. Go to ChesterfieldFence.com.
Do you ever wonder if you've saved enough money to retire? Well, you can find out how you can make your money go a lot further in retirement in a 3-hour adult education class called Retirement Planning 101. Hey, it's Sue Thomas, and this is a one-night class. It's taught by a fiduciary advisor from Financial and Tax Architects. They have decades of financial planning experience, and they hold these at colleges and libraries throughout St. Louis. You will learn about reducing your taxes, maximizing your Social Security income, paying for health care, all of it. And there's no cost. Just bring 3 canned goods for St. Louis Crisis Nursery. Now, there are a handful of openings for the classes this month and next. Just register by calling 314-947-2012. 314-947-2012. It's the Sue Thomas number. 314-947-2012.
KFTK FM Florissant from the Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's Injury Lawyers Studio. Call 314-500-5000.
That's 314-500-5000.
All on the free Odyssey app.
A possible
possible breakthrough for peace talks. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. President Trump says Russia and Ukraine will immediately start negotiations toward a ceasefire and an end to the war, though there's no immediate confirmation from Ukraine.
President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin spoke for more than 2 hours today as President Trump tries to broker a ceasefire in Ukraine. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says the president is weary and frustrated with the conflict.
He has made it clear to both sides that he wants to see a peaceful resolution and a ceasefire as soon as possible.
Russian state media reports Putin told President Trump a ceasefire with Ukraine is possible after reaching an appropriate agreement, but called the conversation with the president constructive.
Fox's Jared Halpern at the White House. In his post a short time ago, President Trump called the tone and spirit of his call with Putin excellent, also reiterating the Vatican has said it would be interested in hosting negotiations. A Trump administration effort to dismantle the U.S. Institute of Peace has just been blocked by a federal judge in a court fight arguing that steps required by law are not being followed. The federal government lifting an emergency order on drinking water in Flint, Michigan.
Testing shows that Flint's water system is now in compliance with lead standards, leading EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin to lift the 2016 emergency order. Zeldin on X calling it great news for Flint.
The end of this order returns the city of Flint to its regular ongoing obligation to comply with the requirements of the Safe Drinking Water Act and its regulations.
In 2014, the city switched from Detroit water to Flint River water, which leached lead from the city's aged pipes. Over 97% of lead lines have since been replaced.
Fox's Jeff Manasso. Flint's mayor says they'll continue work to ensure past mistakes are never repeated. America is listening to Fox News.
This is Joe Cordell of Cordell & Cordell. Cordell & Cordell is the largest family law firm in the country with over 35 years of helping clients navigate divorce. That does give us certain advantages, for example, in experience and resources. But being big doesn't mean less personal or less local. Our attorneys live and work in your community, and as neighbors, they understand the challenges your families face. Cordell & Cordell, a partner you can count on.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements. 600 Kelwood, St. Louis. CordellCordell.com.
Hey, it's Mike Rowe, and if you want to do business with a company that actually stands for something, switch to Pure Talk. I did. Sure, I appreciate being on America's most dependable 5G network with unlimited talk and text for just $20 a month. But what I really appreciate is Pure Talk's commitment to our military and to our skilled workforce. That matters to me. Save 50% off your first month when you dial pound 250 and say keyword Mike Rowe. Pure Talk, a wireless company that actually stands for something.
Air Comfort Service, heating, cooling, and insulation. Weather.
Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
Tons of rain and thunderstorms over the next 48 hours. Periods of rain and thunderstorms going through our Monday afternoon. Heavy rain again possible. It's humid. Some storms could be strong to severe, 78. Showers and thunderstorms tonight. Periods of heavy rain, 66 Tuesday, showers and storms, 79. It all fades away on Wednesday. This is 97.1 FM Talk. Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
Do you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt or personal loans? With credit card debt at all-time highs, Debt Relief Advocates is urgently notifying consumers of debt relief now being made available, designed to aid consumers with out-of-control credit card debt. Those who qualify and enroll for this relief program will only have to pay back a fraction of what they owe. This is not bankruptcy or a debt consolidation loan. This is a relief program that credit card companies would rather you not know about, as it ends your debt nightmare and saves you lots of money. Consumers owing at least $10,000 in credit card debt or personal loans can now take advantage of this debt relief as the cost of living skyrockets. Debt Relief Advocates has established a relief hotline for you to call to learn what debt reduction you may qualify for, so don't wait. For this free information, call the Relief Hotline at 800-525-9369, 800-525-9369, 800-525-9369.
When you get hurt, you don't want to end up on the injured list. You want to get back in the game, stronger than ever. At Morgan & Morgan, we're the home run hitters you need. Morgan & Morgan, proud sponsor of the St. Louis Cardinals.
Injured? Visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
1 in 4 Americans today are living with a disability. I'm one of them. People with disabilities are extremely talented, resilient problem solvers that have so much to offer. And we've got a trusted ally on our side, an organization we can rely on. Easter Seals. Easter Seals is leading the way to full equity, inclusion, and access to healthcare, employment, and education for people with disabilities, families, and communities. That's my Easter Seals. Make it yours.
Learn more and get involved at easterseals.com.
That is exactly what I needed to hear.
Thank God someone here knows what they're talking about.
That's us. That's right. Gotta love this American ride.
All right, you need to take the time and get the full picture.
Oh, yeah, it is the moment you have been waiting for.
Don't get me wrong, I love the ladies. I mean, they rev my engine, but they don't belong in the newsroom.
Annie's out. Ryan and Brad are in.
Goodness sake, kid. Keep your voice down. Your father's listening to the radio.
This is the Mannie Frey Show.
She's got no voice. We're hoping she comes back tomorrow, Annie Frey. We'll just let you know if we hear anything from her, but we did have a clip that we've been playing the last couple hours, last couple segments, not a couple hours, of her talking, and you could hear that she just doesn't have a voice. So that's why we're here at the Mannie Frey Show today. A little bit of breaking news I want to catch you up on that is happening within the last hour. Now, little stage setting here first. Over the weekend, and I think this actually happened Friday, but we were really covering it more over the weekend. The Supreme Court had barred Trump from removing Venezuelan nationals. And that headline was a little weird because, as I'll read to you
here. It was the Alien Enemies Act ruling, right?
Yes, I believe. I don't want to get in over my head, but I think that's what this was dealing with. In an 8-page unsigned opinion, the justices sent the case back to a federal appeals court for another look and blocked the Trump administration temporarily from removing any of the men from the United States under an 18th century wartime law. That's what you're referring to, until the appeals are resolved. So it really is just kicking it back and saying, you didn't really do this right, so it's in the meantime, it's halted, and so you can't do it. So here's the breaking news. It's that the Supreme Court has allowed Trump to strip Venezuelans' temporary legal status over Ketanji Brown Jackson's dissent. So I don't know if that means that 8 of the 9 all agreed on this, and she was the one that didn't, but here's the story. The Supreme Court, in an emergency order on Monday, this morning, allowed the Trump administration to strip legal protections in the Biden administration gave to hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans over the public dissent of one of the court's liberal justices. So it does sound like it was an 8-seat majority, or whatever you want to call that, 8-1. The Trump administration in January said it would move to revoke temporary protected status for Venezuelans, lifting protections that barred deportation due to civil unrest and dangerous conditions in a migrant's home country. So that's a good ruling because the refugee status, I guess you'd call it, the asylum status, had been abused so badly,
very badly,
by the Biden administration that they were basically just giving refugee status to everybody, even if they were not they were just fleeing poverty. Like, that's not, you don't get refugee status fleeing poverty. You have to have some sort of reason why you've been persecuted that is unjust for us to consider that for you. This seems like a really good time to play this. I wasn't planning on this, but you know who Pedro Pascal is?
Yeah.
The Mandalorian.
The Mandalorian.
Among many other things. He had a clip that went viral. Did you see this?
No, I haven't.
He had a clip where he was talking about immigration, and he is a refugee when he was a kid. So it's an interesting clip. I'll play it.
I want people to be safe and to be protected, and I want very much to live on the right side of history. And I'm an immigrant. My parents are refugees from Chile. I myself was a refugee. We fled a dictatorship, and I was privileged enough to grow up in the U.S. And after asylum in Denmark. And if it weren't for that, I don't know what would have happened to us. And so I stand by those protections. Always.
That's fine. I mean, it's an interesting clip because he's talking about his own personal story of his parents fleeing Chile, going to Denmark, and then eventually to the United States. So he grew up here. I don't know much. I don't think he went into much of the background of why they had to flee. But typically in the past, up until the last 4 years, if you were fleeing a country due to persecution, it was probably pretty severe.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were leaving your home country because you were under assault.
Yeah, maybe you were part of the government that was ousted by the dictatorship's government or whatever, and they were imprisoning you for being nothing more than a political opponent or something like that. So yeah, those are people that are in fact refugees.
The only problem with this clip and the way that it's being interpreted in context is that it sounds like he's taking a shot at the current administration.
Mm-hmm.
No surprise there. Pedro Pascal, while he has stood up for Gina Carano in that battle, which was good, he should have done that. He also is pretty far left on most things. That Gina Carano story, if you don't know what we're talking about, look it up. There's too much history there to go into. But she was fired from The Mandalorian and maybe her own series for basically speaking out against COVID, which is so stupid. But she was noble in doing so, and she did not back down from her beliefs, and good for her. Pedro Pascal spoke out in favor of her. On basically everything else, he's pretty far left. So when he says something like this, you're like, I think what you're doing there is saying that you don't like the way the administration is handling immigration. And I would give him the benefit of the doubt, except he says the phrase wrong side of history.
Yeah, I hate that phrase.
So it's pretty clear that he is saying that the way America / Trump administration is handling the refugee crisis is bad. The problem is that sets up a straw man argument.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very, very weak argument to make, and you can do it in settings like this because there's nobody pushing back, and you're also a major movie star. Unless you're sitting down with Fox News, who's going to go, right. No, wait a second, you're talking about the refugee status
or something like that.
Something like that. You're probably not going to get any pushback. So you can just kind of lob those things, and people will hear them and go, yeah, I was actually in a barber shop within the last month, and I was getting my hair cut, and the barber, I guess do you have to be a man to be a barber?
I don't know.
Or do you have to be is it hairstylist?
It's a different training is all I know.
Well, it was a female that was cutting my hair, so maybe that's not considered barber. I don't actually know.
I don't think it has anything to do with gender. I think it has to do with training and certifications.
So you could be a female barber?
I believe so.
I would like to know the answer to that randomly. But she was cutting my hair, and so there's people, just like any hairstylist place, people are coming and going, and there's other hairstylists too. And it was that's when it was. It was Cinco de Mayo.
Okay.
Because they were talking about, you do anything for Cinco de Mayo? And they were joking that, no, Trump's deporting everybody. And I was like, well, in a barbershop setting, it's like whatever. It's a free-for-all. But it's the same kind of thing that I was like, I could say something here, because what they were saying was, if you're Latin American, you're being deported right now. It was a broad statement that I was like, I get that you're joking, but if you're basing that on some sort of real political belief, I would say, in the right setting, I would say something.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what this is from Pedro Pascal, which is, it's not in the right setting. I would like to have that discussion and find out, do you really believe that? Because the refugee status, like we just said at the beginning of this segment, has been so abused in the last 4 years that you coming to America in 1980 or whatever it was is very, very different.
Completely different situation. And the thing that's sad about it is, too, the way that the Biden administration handled refugee status is they have actually harmed people who are real refugees. You are less likely now to have your case heard because they've overflowed the system and they've overdone it with people who are not legitimate refugees. I forget what the rate of rejection is, but it was wasn't it something like 85 or 90%? Like, you get it once you get your court hearing, they're like, nope, this doesn't count. You're out of here. To the point where if you are a legitimate refugee, your chances of actually fleeing your persecutor and not being sent back to them get harmed because the Biden administration has decided to name everybody a refugee. Oh, they just want a better job. Well, they're an economic refugee, that sort of thing. That's not helpful to people who actually need refugee status. Also, these people now that the Biden administration let in, you listen to Pascal's story, he went to Denmark, and then he came to the United States. These people aren't just fleeing. They're skipping a whole bunch of countries on their way here and then declaring refugee status in the United States. if you are fleeing persecution in Venezuela, you can get refugee status in Mexico. You can get that. You can do that sort of thing. So you're not skipping Mexico for any other reason than you think that it'll be better in the United States, and it's not refugee status at that point. Now you've come to the point where you're like looking to get in and make a life as an American citizen. You just want to be a citizen, and you're trying to cut the line.
Shelly in the chat says females can be barbers, by the way.
Oh, sweet.
But Biden administration was doing exactly what you're saying. They were actually coaching people on how to declare asylum status who weren't even going to declare asylum status.
Right.
And now what's really weird, and this isn't Pedro Pascal, so I'm not saying that lumping everybody into one category. But the minute the Trump administration starts bringing actual refugees from South Africa over, what happens? They get criticized.
Mm-hmm.
They say, no, that's not okay. That's not real refugees. This is 13% of the white population in South Africa has been killed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's crazy. That's a stat that I saw. I should probably verify that. But it's a really high number of murders that are happening just based on race.
Well, and it's Afrikaners. It's not white people in general. It's Afrikaners. That's who the government is going after.
And that is a legitimate refugee status to say, look, my life is in danger because of something I have no control over. If I am a certain color and I live in a certain area, I'm a target. And there are people that are afraid. So they brought over, 80-something people. And, of course, they just got criticized for that. Well, that's real refugee status. That's real refugees coming to the United States going through the process.
And the point being, it has nothing to do with the color of their skin, and it has everything to do with the situation that they're in.
Yes.
It's not an economic thing. It is a fleeing for their life thing.
Yeah, and in a way, it does have to do with the color of their skin. But we're not declaring refugee status because of the color.
Right.
We're not doing it. The country that they're coming from is being racist. The other thing about the Pedro Pascal thing before we move on here, and by the way, we're going to take your calls in a minute. So if you were in the midst of anything that was happening on Friday and was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what I saw, we want to hear from you in the next segment. But the protections for refugees that Pedro Pascal mentions there, I think that the whole conversation gets lost, and this happens regularly. Like I said, in the barbershop, at a bar, among family, whatever. And it's not just left, right, although there is a political bent to it, that people really, really, really confuse legal immigration and maybe refugee status with illegal immigration. You can't just say that Trump is against immigrants because there is no factual basis to back that up. In fact, he is starting a gold card program with the express purpose of bringing in immigrants. But he's doing it based on money because he wants more money. He wants more economic benefit to that happening in the United States. It's all about money all the time with Trump. If that sounds negative to you, you have not been paying attention for the last 8 years. Trump is a businessman first. He treats every single transaction that he does with every country as a business deal. That should not be a surprise. So he's treating immigration as a business. He's treating it as something that could benefit the United States economically by bringing in people with a lot of money. And he's saying if you bring in people with money, they're bringing in money for everybody. They're going to hire more. They're going to do more business here. So he's not against immigration.
Right.
He is against illegal immigration and the weaponization of illegal immigration.
That is the biggest, I don't know what you want to call it, pulling the wool over the American people's eyes that the Democrats have ever done is they have conflated immigration and illegal immigration, and they did it by changing the name of illegal aliens to illegal immigrants, and then they just dropped the illegal part and say Trump is going after immigrants.
Yes. Well, and they also did undocumented for a while, and now it's just immigrants. They just don't, or migrants. They don't even say immigrants anymore, just migrants. So it's the use of language. And the interesting thing, much larger conversation, we'll end on this, is that they seem to be losing their ability to control that narrative. Trump is a wrecking ball to everything. I think he has been a part of that. I also think that media is changing enough that the two coming together at the same time means that when Democrats start to push this stuff out, you can just see it more than you could before.
I want to mention that you called Trump a wrecking ball, and people on the left are acting like Donald Trump is causing this to happen. Donald Trump is the tool that the people want to use to cause this to happen. Donald Trump is acting on behalf of the people. He's not impressing this upon people. What you're seeing from Donald Trump is the will of the people, not the other way around.
We always talk about the Trump administration being such a different point in history that, gosh, there's just, every day you wake up and you go unprecedented. Like, we get tired of using the word unprecedented. The weird thing is, and this is a tease for later, that all the stuff concerning Joe Biden right now is unprecedented and oddly has nothing to do with Donald Trump. All the scandal that we're talking about with his health, both physical and mental, with them probably knowing that he's had cancer for way longer than they're letting on, none of that has anything to do with Donald Trump. So we're just, yes, Trump does things constantly that are outside the box, that are unprecedented, that are completely novel. But so did Biden. Mm-hmm. It just wasn't for the better.
Right.
And hopefully all Trumps are. That remains to be seen, of course. We are just barely into the second Trump term. And we are going to take a break here. As I mentioned in that segment, we would like to come back after this break and talk more about the storms from Friday. I would like to hear what you're doing now. You know, if you're having to deal with something now, or a relative or somebody close to you is like, oh my gosh, this was a huge deal, and here's how it's affecting us. I want to hear from you. Also, if you were in the midst of something crazy that happened on Friday and as it was happening, I'd like to hear from you too. 314-241-9797, 314-241-9797, and we will tell our stories coming up next.
Country boy can survive. Country folks can survive. I can plow a field all
Annie's
day
out,
long.
Ryan and Brad are in. This is the Mannie Frey Show. Talk lines are open now at 314-241-9797 or 866-455-9797.
A lot of people, when they come in, they'll say, this is my last hope. The next step is getting them in the right arch supports. Our goal is to have that long-term change for them, to see someone that is in pain. I change things for them. See how we can help you with a free fitting at the Good Feet store.
Men, need a clinic that accepts all insurance, including Medicare? U.S. Men's Medical Center in St. Peters does. U.S. Men's helps men experiencing loss of energy, focus, concentration, and low libido. And they accept all insurance, even Medicare, for testosterone replacement therapy. Patients love the staff and the fact that, yes, I'm going to say it again, they accept all insurance, including Medicare. Feel better? Call U.S. Men's Medical Center at 636-244-5333.
Here's the hard truth. Every 6 years, your dollar loses half its buying power. That means a $100,000 savings account today could feel like $50,000 by 2031. And you see it every time you fill up your tank, buy groceries, or pay the bills. Prices are up. Your dollar is down. But there's a simple way to protect the value of your savings with something real, something proven. Gold, an asset that holds its value over time. That's why I trust Noble Gold Investments. They make it simple to protect your savings with physical gold or silver. No high-pressure sales, no call centers. Just honest guidance, one-on-one support, and transparent pricing. And right now, when you open a qualified account, Noble Gold will send you a free 10-ounce silver American flag bar as a thank you. Head to noblegoldinvestments.com today to learn more. That's noblegoldinvestments.com.
Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals, including gold, involves risks. Consult with your tax attorney or financial professional before making an investment decision.
Hi, Chad Hansen with Hansen's Tree Service. Spring is a great time for tree maintenance and removal. At Hansen's Tree Service, we have a full staff of certified arborists that can help you with everything you need when it comes to tree care. Get ahead of spring storms and check us out at hansenstree.com.
You're listening to the Annie Frey Show live from the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation Studio. Air Comfort Service is proud to support Greater St. Louis Honor Flight. Sign your veteran up for the Honor Flight today at gsLHonorFlight.org. And for HVAC services, visit aircomfortservice.com.
Carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done.
This is the Annie Frey Show. The Annie Frey Show is streaming online. Watch us live on YouTube and subscribe.
Yeah, it's the Mannie Frey Show today. Ryan and Brad filling in. Annie just doesn't have a voice, and that's the way it works. When you don't have a voice, you can't do radio. So we are filling in today and taking your phone calls right now about the storms from Friday, either what your experience was on Friday or what you've been dealing with since. 314-241-9797. Let's go to Dan. Dan, what was your experience in St. Charles, it looks like you're from, on Friday?
Yeah, so me and my coworker, we work at a local dealership in Chesterfield in St. Charles, and we were doing our job, and on our way back, we just slammed with the storm, and we're like, what do we do? Because I couldn't drive, couldn't see, so I parked under a bridge, and then like all of a sudden, just everyone stops and does the same thing, and then like no one's driving on the highway, and I'm like, you know, we're saving our bacon, but I'm like, are we endangering everyone else behind us? So we just kind of waited it out, and then the storm kind of let up, and then everyone started moving again. But that was a crazy thing that happened with me.
Dan, did you say that you stopped? Did you pull over under a bridge, or were you just stopped on the highway?
Yeah, we were on 64, and I pulled over to the shoulder under the bridge, but then as that filled up, everyone else stopped too. There was a Land Rover next to me, and I don't think they were taking any chances because then we got hit with the hail, and everyone just stopped.
Dan, you said you work for a dealership. You don't have to tell us which one if you don't want to, but was there hail damage at a lot of the dealerships in the area?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. We got wrecked. We actually, they're actually going to send a team of people to make, like, a temporary setup where they're going to have lights and everything, and they're going to go car by car, checking every single one. It's a lot of damage.
So, Dan, I understand it because I saw pictures of these cars stopped on the overpass and then the cars being lined up on the highway and stuff like that. And so what you're telling me is, because I know there's a lot of questions being asked about that, but what you're telling me is whenever you stopped, it was because you couldn't see anything because of the rain and you thought it was unsafe for you to continue to drive?
Yeah. I literally couldn't see in front of me. Like, I even had my hazards on and people had their hazards on, but I could barely make it out. And like, I couldn't see anything. So I was like, well, I'm not going to, hit like a guard railing or something.
No, that's fair.
And then like the hail was huge.
Last question for you, Dan. How long did that last where you just couldn't see anything? Like a minute or longer?
It was about 15 minutes.
15 minutes?
Yeah, it was like a wave. And then like when it started to let up a little bit, I was like, all right, we got to go, So
yeah. Well,
yeah,
Dan,
about 15 minutes.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate the information. That's one of those things that we don't talk about. We haven't, at least,
right?
Is the hail. We're talking about the wind, the tornadoes, but there was a ton of hail.
Yeah.
And it's been crazy. We were saying this on Friday as this was happening, that, my gosh, how much hail have we had this spring? I live in Illinois. Obviously, Brad and Annie all live in Illinois. And I don't know if this was something that Missouri side got to, but throughout March, there was one or two major hailstorms that hit roofs. I mean, everybody is getting a roof. You live in O'Fallon, and if you drive through O'Fallon even now, some of the siding looks like Swiss cheese.
Yeah, it looks like somebody took machine guns and shot up the sides of houses. I mean, they're anywhere from baseball size down to like quarter size holes in the siding of people. There are houses that looks like somebody just grabbed and shredded the siding. It is unbelievable how bad that hailstorm was. And that was all the way back in March.
There's a little ice cream shop in O'Fallon called Gators.
Yes.
That every time I drive by it, I have to do a double take because there's so much damage on the one side that it looks like it almost looks like a design.
Yeah.
That at first glance you go, oh, that looks kind of cool. Oh, wait a minute, that's hail damage.
Yes.
It's crazy.
One of our neighbors has brick siding and they have dents and pocks in their siding. Or not in their siding, but in their brick from the hail.
Wow. We'll get to some of your comments online. 314-241-9797 if you'd like to call. Mike is on the phone. Hi, Mike.
Hey, how you guys doing today?
Good. How are you, Mike?
Getting by. Yeah, we're kind of in the thick of it here with this cleanup and whatnot. So
what do you do? And has it been, were you a part of the major stuff that happened on Friday, or has it been more this weekend that you've been working through it?
Yeah, so actually Friday, we knew that some storms were coming in. Unfortunately, we never know, when it's just going to be a storm that's going to stop our production. And again, we have a tree company here in the Metro East. And then when there's going to be a major storm. So we hurried up and finished for the day, and then kind of as protocol, just kind of kept our phones handy in case the worst should happen. And sure enough, so my general manager, who lives in Granite right by the park, of course, he started calling us, letting us know what the situation looked like down there, and it was absolutely devastating. So he definitely took the time all weekend long, going around, talking to folks, trying to line up, hey, what could we do immediately, and what can we do come Monday and through this week. So that's what we were experiencing on the tree side.
Are you Missouri or Illinois?
Illinois. I personally live in Missouri, but we're based out of Edwardsville. And again, like I said, our main guy lives there in Granite, right there at what I'm going to call Ground Zero. And we're definitely out there doing some work today, and it's quite the scene for sure.
Were any of your employees affected by this?
No, and that was the first thing. Of course, living in St. Charles, we got a taste of it. And after it came through, I called everybody to see how everyone was doing. Luckily, all of our guys were good. And then the focus certainly switched to, okay, our customers, who we could help out. It always happens, when these storms come through, it can certainly be a boom situation for folks in my business. But it's often a sad dichotomy when you sit there and you see just the devastation and, the people that are, oftentimes underinsured or otherwise just, they're sitting there, they're crying on their front porch, and you can't help but just feel for them. So it's certainly a thing, that's for sure.
Mike, are you guys, do you still have availabilities to help people get trees removed and stuff like that? Or are you guys so busy that you can't even take on more customers?
So, and this is something we kind of pride ourselves, when we're out there doing normal bids and whatnot, we always explain to customers, we tell them, hey, when we're planning on getting to their job, but if there's ever a hazardous situation, something dangerous, we try to feel them out to find out, okay, who can give us, some breaks to get to those folks. And God bless the people in the Metro East here. By and large, I'd say 95% of our customers always understand. So for the most part this week, we're still getting some of our normal work done, but we're able to pivot to some of those people who are in more immediate need.
Mike, I got one last question here for you. What advice would you give to somebody that they've got down trees and whatnot? What are some things that they should look for, and where should they go from that point?
Yeah, well, number one, before you get to chopping yourself, call some professionals out, and get some estimates. You should not be paying for anybody to come out and take a look at your trees. And just find out, if this is something that you can do. And, certainly talk to your insurance agent before you start getting into it. But a lot of these trees are in precarious situations. And so I know with my crew in particular, when it comes to these, we take great care because some of those limbs are still under pressure and can really hurt somebody. So.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Keep at it and keep up with us. And this is probably a good time for us to mention, too, that on 971talk.com, there's a link right there on the homepage that if you want to get involved and help, because there's just a lot of people that need sometimes little stuff, sometimes big stuff.
Yeah.
But especially if you're retired or you just have some extra time, they're looking for volunteers. We've got a whole list of organizations that are already here working.
Yeah, there's a list of organizations, what they're doing. It's actually organized by that. So if you're looking for shelter, they've got a list for that. There's just all sorts of things. So if all you've got right now is the hand cranked radio and you're listening to us, thank you for listening to us. But see if you can jump on that website and see if you can find some help there. If you know somebody that needs some help, maybe you can direct them to these things. Or if you want to jump in and help out, every one of those sites, you can go to there and see if there's any way that you can help.
Gene is on the phone. He is from our side of the river, Collinsville. Gene, what happened to you Friday?
Hey, I just wanted to call in and give you a little heads up on not only the Metro East got hit, but we have a lake house down at Lake Egypt, and it went through down there in Marion. And guys, I'm going to tell you, you can get online and look at the videos and the pictures, and they're horrific and they're terrible. It doesn't do justice to see it in person. It twisted trees off that are 3 foot thick like they're toothpicks. It looks like somebody took a giant saw it went through and just rim wrecked everything, and people literally lost their entire house, everything they own. It makes me emotional to talk about it from what I saw. I mean, there are houses that are completely gone. Just there's nothing left. Just twigs everywhere. I mean, their stuff is thrown. I heard reports today people in Kentucky are picking up mail from the Marion area. It carried it that far before it let go of it. And it's just it's a life-changing thing to see the power that one of those tornadoes carries. And I believe it was an EF4 when it got down here. But it just, man, I mean, it's unbelievable to watch and see what it did and what it didn't do. I mean, I saw a house totally gone, and the pickup truck and the car the people own are still sitting in the garage where they were parked.
Oh, my gosh. Gene, you mentioned Lake Egypt.
The house is gone.
So do you have a house at Lake Egypt?
Yes, we have a house down there, and then we live in Belleville.
Is your house, did it get hit?
No, it missed us by probably about 5 miles as the crow flies. It went just north of where we're at, so it really went right, kind of almost dead in the middle between Lake Egypt and the town of Marion. It went through
Carbondale
right there, and and you get online. There's some really fantastic videos. They flew a helicopter down through there and videoed the path of where it cut through, and I mean, it went through forest areas that it's just like somebody took a chainsaw and rim wrecked a forest. I mean, it just twisted trees off like they were twigs.
Yeah,
like they were nothing.
Wow, Gene, thanks for the report. That area is just a little bit outside. I think maybe we might hit close to Carbondale, Marion, on like a good weather day.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we regularly do, so we haven't heard as much about that area.
But it's important to remember that there are several areas that were affected. I know the storm here on Friday got us, but there were several places.
The national reports have all been, I don't know about you, I've seen these over the weekend. They would say Missouri and Kentucky. And I was like, dudes, Illinois got hit too.
Yeah.
I didn't know how bad it was at Lake Egypt. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah,
but I knew there was some down there. Sue, I think, is next on the line. Sue from Ladue. How are you?
I'm doing great, Ryan. Gene did a pretty good description of the damage. I was just down on Pershing checking out where my grandson lives, and it is breathtaking, to say the least. It is block after block after block of huge, massive trees uprooted from the ground. Some still have the sidewalks intact. Just complete devastation everywhere, and it just goes on and on and on. It's mind-numbing.
You said your son your son was hit down there?
My grandson lives down there. Yeah, we live in Brentwood, and we got hit too, but not like that.
Sue, what's being done? Have you seen, your grandson would probably be able to tell you, are there crews there? Is there much help? I mean, are people needing bottled water? Like, what's the need there right now?
Yeah, we actually saw several aid trucks down there distributing supplies. There's no electricity, so they're in the same boat as a lot of us. Just getting by day to day, but I can't imagine how long it's going to take just to clean some of those roadways, and all the traffic signals are out. So it's mass pandemonium, just trying to get from one place to another. It's crazy.
Is there a particular town that this was, or was it like Gene was saying? Was it Marion?
Central West End, Forest Park area is what I'm talking about.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I thought you were talking about the same area as Gene was a second ago.
No, he just did a really good description, because like he said, pictures and what you see, it can't do it justice. You just can't hardly believe it. And you'll see walk one street and you're overtaken, and then get in the car and just drive, and it's the same way block after block for a mile.
Sue, since you're talking about Central West End, and you mentioned you saw some trucks, which organizations are they with? I mean, is this government, is this FEMA, or is this just local charities?
I didn't Yeah, I think they're charitable organizations. They didn't have markings on the trucks that we saw.
Okay.
The
Just
only
curious.
trucks that we saw were UE trucks trying to repair the signals, and it's going to take a while for that to happen.
Gosh. And how widespread would you say? I mean, was it, a couple blocks, or was it?
Oh no! Like I said, it's heart-wrenching because it just keeps going. You think you're out of it, and then you're back into it again. And you could see there's a massive trees down, faces of building. Well, so my grandson's neighbor's top floor collapsed and killed a guy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's just it's heart-wrenching. It really is.
Well, Sue, thank you for the report. That it's hard to see in the images. I mean, you can see how bad it was,
right?
But you can't necessarily see how widespread. I mean, you can see on a graphic like the tracking of a tornado, but you can't see it all at the same. You can see, the down power lines and the trees and the buildings, but it's like you have a hard time. At least I do. Getting the magnitude of what exactly was hit and where.
Well, yeah, you get the overall magnitude, and then you hear people like Sue and Gene and everybody talking about, well, even Mike with the tree service, they all came in, and they, the real thing is you see all the damage, but then you got to remember at each one of those houses, there's families, there's people, and they walk out and they're like, what do I do now?
It's also so strange because depending on where you were, you either got slammed, and it was pockets of it all over the place, or nothing. Like in Collinsville, I got nothing. We got maybe some rain. I mean, we were here when it happened, but I went home and it looked like nothing had happened. But then you go like just certain areas that got absolutely hammered. And they're so random all over the whole area. Last call we can get to this segment is Matt. Saw a funnel cloud. Matt, where was that at?
Yeah, I work for a company where people throughout the year, bring their yard waste and limbs, and we grind it up, sell it back, make mulch out of it. And I was working at 141 and 44 at our yard there, right bordering on the river. I had some maintenance to do before the storm came. I seen it rolling in, so I put on my rain jacket, started doing my maintenance, and about that time could hear the sirens going off. So I popped my head up, and just a wall of dust getting blown, and actually seen. It was rotating. It was trying to go down and make contact just on the other side of the river. Started rotating, but it was so gray you could only just see the white funnel cloud out in front of it barely. So me, I'm kind of a funny guy. Jumped on top of my grinder, started doing a rain dance, and it disappeared off into the distance, and then later on the way home, how much damage it did.
Matt, you do tree service stuff. Does that mean that you basically won't stop for the next few weeks?
Yeah, we run the big, 100,000-pound grinders that you feed with the track hoe. You throw a whole tree in at a time, not a little handheld thing. We just got back from the Carolinas and Florida and Georgia. We were there since September, and then we were in Texas since July from all that hurricane cleanup. So actually, tomorrow we got one of our big grinders going to Ladue to start grinding, and then I'm going to be going to Forest Park to start grinding. So we'll be busy as long as the tree debris keeps being brought in. We'll be there grinding it up.
Yeah. Wow. Matt, thanks for the update. Appreciate the call. It's just I think the thing that's been so surprising about this one is that it hit areas of St. Louis that I don't know that I've ever heard being hit by a tornado.
Yeah. To hear of St. Louis City proper being hit in areas like that, it's really unusual. I mean, to hear of any major city, is
we're gonna talk to Dave Murray about this. There's some phenomenon that we were kind of working through on Friday as this was happening of why it usually doesn't hit cities that we can get into a little bit more of the science of with Dave Murray at 2:25. And if you want to call in, we're gonna have to take a break here, but we can come back and hear some more of your stories. Be glad to do that. And again, send you to 971talk.com. If you're hearing these and saying, man, how can I help? Well, that's where you can help. There's already organizations on the ground. They do this kind of thing. They just need people to help probably move stuff and just hand out supplies and things like that. 971talk.com. It's the main link right there. And we will be right back. Oh, yeah, phone number. Thank you. 314-241-9797. 241-9797.
Annie's out, Ryan and Brad are in. This is the Mannie Frey Show. Talk lines are open now at 314-241-9797 or 866-455-9797.
Mark Cox here. Join me, Annie Frey, and Mark Reardon, along with Thomas Helbig and Bob Kershaw of the Retirement Advisory Group for the next Protecting Your Retirement educational event. It's Tuesday, May 20th at the Frontenac Hilton at 6:30. Here are Bob and Thomas with more.
Are you nearing retirement or already retired and worried about the market volatility and losses at this stage in your life? Would you like to learn why linking to the market is much safer than owning the market?
Would you like to learn how to automatically lock in your market gains every year without having to sell? Did you also know if you're 59 and a half or older, you can roll over your company retirement plan tax-free to protect your nest egg from any future losses? You'll get all the answers and more. If you're 59 and a half or older, you cannot afford to miss this event.
Protect your retirement nest egg and join the official financial advisors of my show, Thomas Helbig and Bob Kershaw, at the Frontenac Hilton on Tuesday, May 20th at 6:30 p.m. Go to retirementkey.com. That's retirementkey.com.
This is attorney Todd Nissenholtz of Kaufman Townsley. Victim of a car accident? Not choosing the best lawyer will cost you. But here's the good news. Since you don't pay unless we win, you can afford the very best. Kaufman Townsley. Call 314-500-5000.
Mizzou football is here to stay. After an undefeated home season and a second straight 10-win year, the Tigers are looking for more in 2025.
Eli and the boys have done it again.
With a top 10 transfer portal class and a strong home schedule highlighted by Kansas, Alabama, South Carolina, and Texas A&M, you don't want to miss out. Get your spot in line by joining the season ticket waitlist at mutigers.com/FB waitlist. MIZ.
Today's YouTube live chat poll. Were you affected by Friday's weather? Yes or no? We want you to jump on Annie's YouTube page and vote in the poll, and we want to hear your story. We still have the phone lines open. It's 241-9797. That's 314-241-9797. The phone lines are open. Call in, tell us your story, or jump on Annie's YouTube page, leave us a message saying or telling us your story. We might read that message on the air. The time right now is 1:47. This time check is sponsored by Jerry Kelly Heating and Air Conditioning.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
The news is fast. Listening to your favorite show at 1.5 speed is even faster. Download the podcast of your favorite 97.1 show. Upload it to the Odyssey app every day. All for your listening convenience. Annie's out, Ryan and Brad are in. This is the Mannie Frey Show.
Talking about the storms, the YouTube live chat poll today is just asking, were you affected by Friday's weather, yes or no? A lot of people chiming in online. I'll pull a couple of those up right now. Shelly says, we went to the art museum yesterday, Sunday, drove through the part of Forest Park and U City to head home. The destruction was awful. Yeah, I think I should probably just drive through there just so I can see it for myself, know what we're reporting on right now. Janine says, I voted yes because I was at work at Shriners when it hit and everybody had to go in the basement. Holly says, I live in Granite City, lost a third of a peach tree and snapped our flagpole. Wow. No power for about 12 hours. Very blessed. Trees, though some homes, hit some homes, through some homes a few blocks away. Tons of tree damage, very large, mature trees. I know people in Granite City and Edwardsville that got hit pretty good. And that's an area that's not being talked about a whole lot. I guess we are because we're there more. But a friend of mine, I didn't even know how badly it had hit Granite City until a friend of mine told me yesterday that he owns a place called Skateway. It's a skating rink in Pontoon Beach. And they had to close the weekend because the roof got basically taken off. And that's not something I don't think you can skate outside while it's raining. That's what they were kind of dealing with, was trying to make sure that they weren't going to get any weather coming in on the whole skating rink.
Yeah.
I don't think the whole roof was gone, but a lot of it had been damaged.
Yeah. Yeah, these storms are it's something else. And the thing to remember is it has a starting point, but it doesn't mean that just once it's gotten through your area that the storm has stopped. So this one apparently kept on. I mean, we'll ask Dave Murray about this at 2:25, but it's apparently the storm just kept rolling through. It went through St. Louis, went through areas of downtown. The one caller was on the riverfront, and he saw it jump over to the other side. And
that's wild. That's wild. And I said this in the last segment, but I'll say it again. It's just so strange because usually with a natural disaster, you have a ground zero, and we have multiple ground zeros.
Mm-hmm.
And then right next to it, nothing. And so it's just so strange because it would be, and this is a terrible comparison, but I'm just thinking about it as far as visuals go and news coverage goes. When Ferguson was happening, the riots of Ferguson, it was like you could see exactly where that event was happening, and you could go and see it right there. Well, again, that's a terrible comparison because we're not talking about riots. We're talking about a weather event. But you can go to multiple places as far as news coverage goes and stand in front of, like the newscasters do, stand in front of devastation. But you could do it all over the whole St. Louis area. So it's just so strange. And that's why we were taking calls is there anything that we're missing? Is an area that we're not really talking about? And Gene, kind of highlighted, you're not really talking about Marion. It's outside of our listening area, but I haven't heard many people talking about Southern Illinois.
Yeah, and to Gene's point, there are people that live in our area that actually have places down there in that area as well. So there are people that are affected.
Right.
Storms are weird that way, that they'll hit certain areas and not hit other areas, and even through the same front, you'll have the tornado roll through, and one storm front can spin up multiples, and it's crazy to see that.
You ever been through a tornado?
Yes. So I say I was through it. I grew up in a mobile home, and my parents' mobile home was maybe about a mile away from my grandparents' place. So anytime we got bad weather or bad weather was threatening, well, we didn't have a basement or a crawl space or anything like that. It was just a trailer on wheels with skirting around it, and it's like, okay, if the weather's bad, you got to go someplace else. My uncle was in a tornado when he was a young man. He was always very nervous about that. So my childhood was bad storms are coming. My uncle would come bursting through the door like Kramer and be like, get the kids. We got to go up to, and so we would go to my grandparents' house, and they had a nice basement, and we would go sit in the basement, and we'd listen to the radio and wait for everything to go through. That was my childhood. Well, one night we were sitting in my parents' living room, and some bad storms came through, and I will never forget this, but our whole place shook. It vibrated. I could hear the windows rattling and stuff like that. And it was maybe for 10 seconds. Very weird. I remember my mom and dad looking at one another like, what was that? And then shortly thereafter, the phone rang, and we got a call that my grandparents' place had been hit. My grandparents lived there, my uncle lived there, and my dad had the shop for his company up there. So 11-something at night, my parents get us out of bed. We're going to, storms are bad. We're going to go get into shelter. We go up to where my grandparents' house is, where we usually turn right. And I remember looking in the rearview mirror of my parents' cars and seeing the blue and red lights flashing. We lived out in the middle of nowhere. We were in the country. But I saw the blue and red lights flashing from the fire department already heading there. I remember the power lines laying across my grandparents' driveway. And then where we would usually make that right turn, we didn't make the right turn. We kept going down the road a little ways. And I had another aunt and uncle who lived down the road. And we went to their house, and they had kids that were a little bit older than me and my family. And so we stayed in there while my dad went up to my grandparents' house. In the morning, we got to go see what it was. My grandpa had a great big concrete grain silo. The storm blew that over, smashed it into the front of his motorhome that was in a shed. It ripped the roof off of the shop of my dad's house. They had a little garage, a detached garage. It had fallen over, and the only reason it wasn't flat on the ground was it was sitting on top of my grandpa's pickup truck. It's stuff that whenever I was little, I grew up with. I knew everything, and it was just gone, and it was devastation. And then the rest of the rest of that summer, spring, summer, I remember it was recovery process. You got to break up that silo and get that out of there. I remember watching the Caterpillars bulldozing garages, and my dad putting a new roof on his shop, and all of these other things. And everything happens, and then that happens, and then there's life before it, and there's life after it. And, thankfully nobody was hurt, but your life gets upended about that. And there's a bunch of people in St. Louis right now that are going through exactly that. And so if you're listening and you weren't affected by these storms, I would guide you to the 97.1 website and go talk to people, go look in there, see if there's any way that you can help, if there's any way that you can volunteer, because there's nothing more comforting than seeing other people show up to help.
I'm looking at the website right now. Urban League of St. Louis, Catholic Charities of the Archdiocese of St. Louis. Salvation Army is a great organization. They have a link on there. And it's just stuff like, can you distribute meals, groceries, bottled water to people who are displaced?
Yeah.
Debris removal, as we've heard from multiple people as we've taken calls, is a huge one. That's probably right now the biggest. Yes. We need to move stuff. I think it was Sue that was saying you can't really even get around on some of the streets. That's a huge problem of trying to even get stuff to people. And then long-term recovery. We've got all that there at 971talk.com if you want to plug in. Of course, another great way to plug in is just if you know somebody who's having trouble, ask them how you can help.
Yeah. Or
go over there and help anyway. That's what I was talking about my buddy who owns Skateway. I was texting with him this morning. I said, what do you need? And he said, we're plugged into church, so we've got quite a few people that are just kind of getting around and networking. And, a lot of times you have to have a specialist. So there are things you can do as a just layman, but then unless you know specifically how to do gutters, you're probably not going to be able to do everything. But a lot of that is just kind of networking. And so it's a weird time. And this is not to make a political point here, and I'm really not, but I'm interested to see, Trump has been changing FEMA and talking about ending FEMA or moving FEMA under a different department. What does that look like now? Have there been big natural disasters like this that we haven't really seen how that works yet? Like, is this a test of that? That's why I was asking Sue, who of the trucks you've seen, were they government trucks? Were they just charities? And she said they were mostly charities. So I'd be kind of interested to see what that looks like. Because if there's nothing marked FEMA, they might be there and you might not know who they are as things have been changing. So anyway, we are going to take a quick break. If you're just tuning in, Annie just doesn't have a voice today. We hope to have her back tomorrow. And we've been talking about the YouTube live chat poll. Were you affected by Friday's weather? Yes or no? Everybody sharing their stories, and feel free to continue to do that. We are planning on talking to Dave Murray in the next hour. I think that's at about 2:25, just to find out, what exactly, how did this happen on Friday? It's kind of a retrospect of what exactly took place, where we should be focused right now, and we'll do that in about a half an hour with Dave Murray. Keep it here. It's the Annie Frey Show.
Do you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt or personal loans? With credit card debt at all-time highs, Debt Relief Advocates is urgently notifying consumers of debt relief now being made available, designed to aid consumers with out-of-control credit card debt. Those who qualify and enroll for this relief program will only have to pay back a fraction of what they owe. This is not bankruptcy or a debt consolidation loan. This is a relief program that credit card companies would rather you not know about, as it ends your debt nightmare and saves you lots of money. Consumers owing at least $10,000 in credit card debt or personal loans can now take advantage of this debt relief as the cost of living skyrockets. Debt Relief Advocates has established a relief hotline for you to call to learn what debt reduction you may qualify for, so don't wait. For this free information, call the Relief Hotline at 800-525-9369, 800-525-9369, 800-525-9369.
Just a reminder to have your air conditioner checked for the summer so you don't have a mishap and it goes down in the hottest day of the year. But it's always best to have it done. Call us, and we'll be more than happy to come out there and check it for you. And like always, if you're having your furnace checked by another company and you are told that this is the year you need to replace it, call me for a second opinion. The 0% interest is still available on most brands. Save your cash and keep your credit cards open and away from those high rates. Call me. You'll be glad you did. Bart Inman, one easy number in Missouri and Illinois. the easiest. It is 314-293-2600 or on the website bartinman.com. Now that's Bart with a B, Inman with an I.com. God bless.
KFTK FM Florissant from the Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's Injury Lawyers Studio. Call 314-500-5000.
That's 314-500-5000.
All on the free Odyssey app.
Hope for peace talks. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. After a 2-hour phone call with Russia's President Putin, President Trump posting that talks on a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia would begin.
He said they were starting immediately after the conclusion of the call, and he went on, part of a long post. The tone and spirit of the conversation were excellent. If it wasn't, I would say so now rather than later. Russia wants to do large-scale trade with the United States when this catastrophic bloodbath is over, and I agree. There's tremendous opportunity for Russia to create massive amounts of jobs and wealth. And later in the post, the president says the Vatican, as represented by the Pope, has stated that it would be very interested in hosting the negotiations. Let the process begin.
Fox's Peter Doocy at the White House. Ukraine's President Zelensky also speaking with President Trump today and telling reporters Ukraine and its partners are considering setting up a meeting that includes Russia, the U.S., EU countries, and Britain. President Trump about to sign the Take It Down Act aimed at cracking down on non-consensual explicit images, including those made with artificial intelligence. White House spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt says it will hold internet platforms accountable
by requiring them to remove such imagery from their platforms and provide justice for victims by allowing prosecutors to go after those who publish non-consensual explicit images online.
The bill also allows possible penalties for threatening to publish images. Some critics have argued free speech concerns. Day 4 of a manhunt after a jailbreak in New Orleans. Orleans Parish District Attorney Jason Williams says this never should have happened.
When you look at what occurred on Friday, 10 men were in a single pod. There's not a pod over there made for 10 men.
Sheriff's officials suspect possible inside help. 3 inmates have been captured. 7 remain on the run. America is listening to Fox News.
This is Joe Cordell of Cordell & Cordell. Cordell & Cordell is the largest family law firm in the country, with over 35 years of helping clients navigate divorce. That does give us certain advantages, for example, in experience and resources. But being big doesn't mean less personal or less local. Our attorneys live and work in your community, and as neighbors, they understand the challenges your families face. Cordell & Cordell, a partner you can count on.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements. 600 Kelwood, St. Louis. CordellCordell.com.
Hey, it's Mike Rowe, and if you want to do business with a company that actually stands for something, switch to Pure Talk. I did. Sure, I appreciate being on America's most dependable 5G network with unlimited talk and text for just $20 a month, but what I really appreciate is Pure Talk's commitment to our military and to our skilled workforce. That matters to me. Save 50% off your first month when you dial pound 250 and say keyword Mike Rowe. Pure Talk, a wireless company that actually stands for something.
Air Comfort Service, heating, cooling, and insulation. Weather.
Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
Tons of rain and thunderstorms over the next 48 hours. Periods of rain and thunderstorms going through our Monday afternoon. Heavy rain again possible. It's humid. Some storms could be strong to severe. 78. Showers and thunderstorms tonight. Periods of heavy rain. 66 Tuesday. Showers and storms. 79. It all fades away on Wednesday. This is 97.1 FM Talk. Chief Meteorologist Dave Murray.
Do you have 3 ex-wives and your current trophy wife wants a life insurance policy 3 times the size of the policies you had to purchase for your previous mistakes? If so, you need to call Big Lou at Term Provider, 800-700-6898. Big Lou is intimately familiar with your problems, and if you're 50 or 60 years old and in reasonably good health, a $1 million policy should only cost about $100 to $200 per month. Big Lou may have a solution for your previous policies as well. You may even save enough money to lighten the load on your new $1 million policy. Remember, call Big Lou. He's like you, except he's only on number 2. Call Term Provider at 800-700-6898. That's 800-700-6898. For $1 million in term life insurance that you can live with. Call Big Lou at 800-700-6898. 800-700-6898.
Stop before you dig. Click or call 811
Digging without having your underground utilities marked is like driving with your eyes closed. It's dangerous and irresponsible. Before you break ground, contact Missouri 811 online or by simply calling 811 to request a utility locate 3 working days before starting.
Stop before you dig. Click or call 811. Every dig, every time.
It's the law. Sponsored by Missouri 811.
To have a roof over your head, a nice roof over your head, is very important.
That's Rick talking about his experience with Rhino Shield ceramic coating.
We got Rhino Shield 18 years ago, and they were very cooperative on getting us the right paint. They were in and out and done in no time. Once it was finished, looked great. We were very happy with it.
The main reason Rick called Rhino Shield is because it's backed by a 25-year transferable warranty.
We've watched a lot of people get their house painted 3 or 4 times, and we haven't had to do any of it. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to have to paint it every 5-7 years.
Take a tip from Rick and put down the paintbrush and call Rhino Shield for your free evaluation. 877-25-RHINO. 877-25-RHINO. Or visit 877-25rhino.com.
We got Rhino Shield 18 years ago. Financially makes sense, especially if it's going to last like this did. Still looks great.
Call now. 877-25-RHINO or 877-25rhino.com.
No pain, don't Rhino. Go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
Is thinning hair or receding hairline making you self-conscious? Stop feeling embarrassed about thinning hair and start looking and feeling your best with Hair Grow by New Nordic. Available online at Amazon, Walmart.com, and NewNordicUSA.com, or in stores at your local CVS.
That is exactly what I needed to hear.
Thank God someone here knows what they're talking about.
That's us. That's right. Gotta love this American ride.
All right, you need to take the time and get the full picture.
Oh, yeah, this is the moment you have been waiting for.
Don't get me wrong, I love the ladies. I mean, they rev my engine, but they don't belong in the newsroom.
Annie's out. Ryan and Brad are in.
Goodness sake, kid. Keep your voice down. Your father's listening to the radio.
This is the Mannie Frey Show.
You're listening to the Annie Frey Show, but it's by the boys. I don't have a voice. Thank you, Brad and Ryan. I appreciate you. And guys, I'm coming back as soon as I possibly can.
That is what she sounds like. And we had a conversation before the show started today that we said we would like you to be here. And then we heard that and we said, why don't you stay home?
And we, unlike some other administrations, will be honest about the health and well-being of the members of our
Oh my
show.
gosh, what a pro. What a pro. Let's talk about Joe Biden and this diagnosis that is making world news this weekend.
His office says former President Biden was seen last week by doctors after urinary symptoms, and they found a prostate nodule. Now they say he's been diagnosed with prostate cancer, and some of those cancer cells have spread to the bone. His office said while this represents a more aggressive form of the disease, the cancer appears to be hormone sensitive, which allows for effective management. The Mayo Clinic says prostate cancer is one of the most common types of cancer, and it often grows slowly.
So now we have a scandal in which it looks like the Biden team and everybody around Joe Biden would have known that he had prostate cancer well before just now.
It's very unlikely that someone could get annual checkups and not notice a PSA elevation over the past, but this is what I typically would see in a VA hospital where a patient hasn't had medical attention in 10 years, presents to an emergency room with bone pain, and then they find that it's metastatic prostate cancer. But in the modern age of medicine, especially the fact that he was a former president, he had intensive state-of-the-art, care where we can see prostate cancer, 10 years in the past. So this is, it's very unusual to hear that someone has prostate cancer where they're annually being followed up. And the fact that we just find it at a Gleason 9 is just pretty much unheard of in this day and age of medicine.
Unheard of. That's a urologist on Newsmax talking about how, it looks like they very much covered up the fact that they knew that he had cancer for quite a while. But they're now being honest about it because there are other stations, MSNBC and CNN, that are having these doctors on saying the same thing, saying, yeah, you can't really, you wouldn't have just discovered this. So it's not even really a conspiracy theory. Well, it is, because they were conspiring. Like, this is the theory, that they were conspiring against you to keep this information from you so that he could be elected again. But they are now talking about this in two tracks, really. One is now that he had serious physical problems for a long time.
Yeah.
And here's Van Jones just recently talking about, he also had mental issues for quite a while.
You were on the record in 2022 voicing concerns about Biden's age and ability. Whom do you blame for the decision of him to run for re-election and the decision to hide his declining abilities as much as they were able to?
Well, look, at the top end, you have to blame him because he made the decision. But he was, and your book reflects this in many different ways, he was shielded by a coterie of advisors and his family. They were in this confirmation bubble, and they tried to shield the world from his decline, and they tried to shield him from his own standing and his polling numbers and so on. And so at the end of the day, I have to point the finger at the people around him who didn't do him a service by encouraging him to continue. I think it was obvious to the public. It may not have been obvious to a lot of politicians. I actually think it was, but it wasn't politically wise in their judgment to speak out. But it was obvious to the American people.
Oh, it was? Thank you. That's David Axelrod, by the way. I said Van Jones. He's at the end of this clip, but this is all Jake Tapper now saying, look, we just needed to be honest about that. Here's more from David Axelrod.
Before that debate, that the president was just too old. He would have been closer to 90 than 80 if he had won re-election, and he already was showing decline. So I blame the people around him, because real loyalty, and it's hard when you work for President Jake to tell them hard truths, but real loyalty demanded that they say, Mr. President, it's just not there, and it's not in your interest, and it's better for you, the country, and the Democratic Party if you leave now.
Van, I remember how emotional you were in the immediate moments after the June 27th, 2024 debate because of what you saw on the stage. And with all this new reporting coming out, and I should disclose that I gave both of you copies of the book so you would have a little bit more information. Do you feel like you were duped, Van? Like, how do you feel?
First, this book is extraordinary. I don't care who you are, left, right, or otherwise. Anybody who cares about this country and about just the dynamics of power, this is the emperor's new clothes playing itself out in real time. Everybody knew, but everyone was afraid to say, except for David Axelrod for 2 years, that something was wrong here. And so, I was shocked. I love Joe Biden. I don't like him. I love him. I got a chance to work with him when I was a part of the Obama administration and loved him more every day. I was shocked to see his condition when he came out, and so was the world. And that wasn't the first time he was in that condition. The book makes it very, very clear. There are people who knew and said nothing. And that is a crime against this republic. And I think the Democrats are going to pay for a long time for being a part of what is now being revealed to be a massive cover-up.
Yeah, they were certainly not a part of that. The people speaking are on TV all the time, and they cover politics, and they're going, well, the people around him is really who you should be blaming. Van Jones even says, though, that it was not politically expedient. I think both of them said it.
Yeah.
That, yes, we all knew, but you couldn't say. But they wouldn't say that they were the ones doing it. They were saying others were. Like, there's plenty of blame to go around. I think that's a quote from David Axelrod in there. Who is more politically connected in the Democrat Party than David Axelrod?
Yeah.
It's not like he's just a pundit. He's not connected to all. He is like the embodiment of the Democrat Party, David Axelrod.
The machine.
He's the machine, exactly. And so for him to say, well, there's plenty of blame to go around here and point the fingers at everybody else, dude, it's like the Spider-Man meme.
Yes.
You're pointing the finger right back at yourself. But it's like they're completely unaware that they're saying it into the mirror. I don't get it.
It's like they're trying to cover up for what they know that they did that was wrong. I mean, David Axelrod said it. Van Jones said it. They didn't fool the American people. The people knew. The American people knew the whole time.
We all knew. But it was just, you're not really supposed to say that, especially early on. Like,
no, you're making fun of his stutter?
Making fun of his stutter?
Are you being ageist?
Right. So this weekend, what was breaking was that the Hur tape, the Robert Hur special counsel tape where he interviews Biden and came back with the famous phrase that he's a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. That all came from that report. Well, the tapes came out, and it's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll play a little bit of one of the tapes that came out here, just so you know, but we don't have to listen to this whole thing.
Where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively working on?
Well, I don't know.
Okay, nothing new here. We've all seen this play out in regular interviews. This wasn't like, behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just as bad.
But when the transcripts came out,
It sounded okay.
They sounded bad, but whenever you listened to the audio, you go, oh, man, this is way worse than even the transcripts made it sound.
Exactly. So we have the audio now, and that's breaking, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, we have something else to tell you, too. He has cancer. And we had no idea, although here he is accidentally mentioning it in 2022, maybe that he had cancer.
And because it was a 4-lane highway that was accessible, my mother drove us, and rather than us be able to walk. And guess what? The first frost, you know what was happening? You had to put on your windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer. And why for the longest time, Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
Okay, so anyway, you got two concurrent scandals happening in parallel time here. One of them we all knew about, which was the mental decline. The other one, which apparently they all knew about but didn't report on, didn't tell anybody about, was the cancer. Now, you could hide that a little bit more than the mental thing.
Yeah.
You could hide that you have cancer, but if you've had it for years, we're talking about possibly 3 years now, because that was from 2022, that clip right there. It could have been before that. Then you have two scandals. Which one do you think is a bigger deal, Brad?
Oh, I think it's the mental decline.
I would have to agree.
I think it's the mental decline, and I think that's why the cancer news came out.
I would have to agree. So we're talking about this Hur tape that I just played a little bit of. At the time, I asked Brad to pull these up because we said, you remember at the time, Robert Hur was a special counsel within the Biden DOJ.
Right.
So all these people came out and said, well, Robert Hur is a Republican activist or stuff. You're like, that doesn't even make any sense.
He's just trying to sabotage him. There's all sorts of things that did that.
So Brad has pulled up here after the Hur quote really is what everybody grabbed onto, the well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory came out. That couldn't stand. You know, Democrats had to circle the wagons and say, that's not true. His memory is fine. Here's Adam Schiff.
What is in the rules, Mr. Hur, what is in the rules is you don't gratuitously do things to prejudice the subject of an investigation when you're declining to prosecute. You don't gratuitously add language that you know will be useful in a political campaign. You were not born yesterday. You understood exactly what you were doing. It was a choice. You certainly didn't have to include that language. You could have said vis-a-vis the documents that were found in the
rendering.
Yeah.
As it happens. So that's Adam Schiff just going after Robert Hur. And if you listen to the tapes, Robert Hur is about as polite as it gets. And in fact, if he really wanted to, he could have come out with so much worse about that investigation about Biden mishandling classified documents. But he actually tried to protect him. That's what we were so upset about, because they're going after Trump for the same thing, and they gave him no grace at all. And they go after Biden for literally same crime, if it's a crime. And they said, yeah, but, he's just kind of old. He didn't really remember. We also have Corinne Jean-Pierre You know, when you wanted truth, you went to the White House press room from 2021 to 2024, and here's her talking about her.
When can we talk to the president's doctor, and how come he hasn't been, or they haven't been asked to come out here and talk with us, given the Her report that challenges the president's mental fitness?
So look, just to speak to the Her report really, really quickly. Special counsel of Her is, as far as I remember, is obviously a Republican, a prosecutor. He's not a medical doctor. He's just not. It's not for him to speak to. It's just not. And you've heard from over the past couple of days since the report has been out, you've heard from legal experts from across the ideological spectrum, even a former attorney general, and he says, and they have come out to say that the stuff in this report that is capturing all of your attention right now is just wrong. It's flatly wrong. It is inappropriate. It is gratuitous, and so. Going to leave that there, and it is obviously up for a medical doctor to decide on that. But look, I have said the medical doctor, the president's doctor, is going to do a physical. He's going to, and he has always put forth in the last 2 years a detailed memo on the president's obviously medical physical, and so I'm just going to leave it there. I don't have anything else to add. Go ahead, Jerry.
Look, that's just a cover-up.
Yeah.
They know what's going on. And then finally it kind of barely peeked its head out like you're playing whack-a-mole and, the whole game was shut off, but somebody accidentally plugged it in for half a second and one of the moles popped up. They went, oh, shoot, we thought we had that thing unplugged. Hit that down. That's what they were doing there, is just hitting down the one thing that had popped up. They thought that they had kind of controlled it, and they were right. They really had controlled that really well until the debate.
Yeah.
That's when everything changed and America saw on full display what they would not do. Because what she says there is, well, Robert Hur is not a doctor as far as I know. Well, then have an independent doctor assess him.
But Robert Hur is not a doctor, but the man sat there and interviewed him and he wasn't making a diagnosis. He was saying nobody's going to buy that this guy has everything. And you're right. That's just an observation that any average Joe can look at it.
He didn't even pretend that he was diagnosing anything. He was just saying, according to my investigation, he seems to have forgotten that he'd even done anything.
Well, what was it that he called him?
A well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
So what about that is a diagnosis?
It's not a diagnosis. But that's just the little ray of sunshine that came through there on that issue that they had to tamp down. And honestly, they did a pretty good job. Everybody kind of went along with it. It's not that nobody questioned it. I did this weekend, actually. I played, last week, we played a lot of the Jake Tapper stuff of him fighting people about Biden's mental acuity and then coming out with the book saying, oh, we should have talked more about this. But you can find Jake Tapper clips where he does question Biden's mental state. They do exist. And so people can point to them and go, look, he actually was saying something. The problem is the prevailing narrative in all of media, but also on his own show, was not that.
The cynic in me says that those clips were put there because they knew this day would come, so they would have something to point back to.
That's the safe way to do it, is to just throw so many clips out there that you're like, look, I got a record.
I said it.
I got a record. And he does. He does have a record, so that should be acknowledged. We're going to take a short break here. We're going to talk about the poll next, but we're going to do it with Dave Murray, with the official meteorologist of 97.1. Were you affected by Friday's weather, yes or no? Of course, we are all, our hearts are with you if you are dealing with that right now, and we have a link at 971talk.com where you can get involved with great organizations that are on the ground in our area right now, like the Salvation Army, Urban League, and others. 971talk.com. We'll be right back with Dave Murray.
Annie's out, Ryan and Brad are in. This is the Mannie Frey Show. The Annie Frey Show is streaming online. Watch us live on YouTube and subscribe.
You know how you always want to know about everyone else's money?
On the podcast What We Spend, guests will, for 1 week, tell us everything they spend their money on.
My son slammed $6 worth of blueberries in 5 minutes.
And everything that makes them feel.
I want to own a house. I want to have a child. But this morning, I really wanted a coffee.
Because at the end of the day, money is always about more than your balance. Listen to and follow What We Spend, an Odyssey original podcast. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't get lulled into believing the IRS is getting soft. It's just the opposite. Hi, this is Lance Story with the Lance Story Law Firm. We are being told by IRS collection officers that their higher-ups are demanding that they get more aggressive than ever. So don't ignore them any longer. Level up. If you have unfiled returns, unpaid taxes, levies, or liens, call the Lance Story Law Firm today and let us get between you and the IRS. We'll protect your rights, including your right to appeal or even your right to take the IRS to tax court. Remember, IRS problems are legal problems, and they need to be handled by an expert attorney team who's done it for decades. So call the Lance Story Law Firm today. We're local. Our office is right here in St. Louis, or visit LanceDruryLaw.com to schedule your free consultation with your local tax resolution law firm, the Lance Story Law Firm, 314-260-6120.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
Step outside and fall in love with your backyard again. From inviting porch overhangs to durable composite decks and cozy screen rooms, Lakeside Renovation and Design creates stunning outdoor living spaces designed for relaxation, entertaining, and making memories. With expert craftsmanship and top-quality materials, your new outdoor oasis will be perfect for every season. Call Lakeside Renovation and Design today or visit lakesiderd.com to get started. Let's turn your backyard into the retreat you've always dreamed of.
You're listening to the Annie Frey Show live from the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation Studio. Time to schedule your air conditioner service. Get your entire HVAC system checked for $19 a month with the Preferred Partner Plan and be ready for the first heat wave. Visit aircomfortservice.com.
Annie's out, Ryan and Brad are in. This is the Mannie Frey Show. Follow Annie on X at Annie Frey Show.
A little bit of breaking news here. Apparently, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin have had a over 2-hour call. Was that just today? Or is it just being reported
that was today?
It was this morning. And they were talking Ukraine and Russia war, of course, but a ceasefire timeline is still unclear, according to the reports that I'm reading right now. Dave Murray is on the phone with us. He is the chief meteorologist here at 97.1. Hi, Dave.
Hi there.
Let's talk about Friday. Obviously, This is the big news that we're all dealing with it from the weekend, and depending on where you are, you might have been very, very adversely affected by this. There's been reports of some deaths, of course. Dave, is this something that you could ever... Can you predict this, and how far ahead would you even know?
It was pretty clear on Thursday that we were going to have a very strong severe weather outbreak on Friday afternoon. And then once we get into Friday, it becomes what I call nowcasting. It's really watching exactly what's going on. And I know this is kind of on a very short-term basis, but that's just what tornadoes are all about. It became pretty clear when the cell, it was a supercell kind of all by itself, was in West County, really far West St. Louis County, portions of St. Charles County, that this thing was going to mean business. Now, even at that point, even though the tornado warning started to go up shortly after that, it was going to be a big hail producer. And when that happens, you have to always be aware of tornadoes. And once it got into central St. Louis County, it was like, oh, man, this is not going to be good at all. And obviously it wasn't. It was an EF3. Winds looked like it was about 155 miles per hour. The entire track, though it skipped a little bit, was 22 miles long. It went into Illinois, where it then faded away. At its biggest, which was in North St. Louis City, the width of the tornado was about a mile wide.
Oh, my
This
gosh.
is a big twister. Big twister.
Wow. Dave, I don't remember seeing tornadoes hit, a major metropolis like this. And maybe I'm just, I just can't remember, or they just hit randomly and this was the random one it hit this time. But isn't there something about the way a city is designed with buildings that it kind of changes the wind patterns, that this doesn't happen as much, or am I just making something up?
It does not happen as much, but a lot of that has to do with that. It's just a pinpoint spot over a large area. There is a fallacy out there that tornadoes don't hit cities. They absolutely do. Nashville's been hit. Oklahoma City's been hit. Chicago's had some. So Kansas City, obviously. So it definitely happens. What happens in our case is if a cold front is moving in, and yes, there was a cold front moving in, but it was way, way to the west. We don't worry an awful lot about cold front thunderstorms. Can they be mean? Absolutely. What I really worry about are these supercells that develop right over us or develop on the east side and tend to back up. And that's really what it looked like this scenario was going to be, that we weren't going to see these things come marching from central portions of Missouri, that this thing was going to develop almost on top of us all by itself, so it doesn't have anything to fight with. It can feed on whatever it wants. Now, what happens in a cold front type situation, those storms 50, 60 miles out start to feed on the hot and dry environment of the city. And that tends to kill them. But when a storm forms on top of us, it's feeding on the farmland out in central portions of Illinois. That's how far it sucks the air into it. So the city effect has very little effect on a thunderstorm, severe thunderstorm that develops on top of us.
We've taken calls on this subject earlier today, and lots of people commenting in our YouTube chat, and just about where were you, what are you experiencing, and things like that. And one person I noticed said, "Yeah, I'm in Warrenton. We didn't even get a drop of rain."
Right, exactly. Yeah, you can go even closer to St. Louis than that. Again, this supercell, again, all by itself, just wasn't out there. It wasn't out there at the time. It just kind of developed again right on top of us. Those are always the mean ones.
You said the word skipping. So that's the way, I guess, a tornado moves, is that it hits and it kind of pops around. Is that all considered one tornado in one track?
Yes, we will consider that all one track, because even though the tornado part of it may have come up, the funnel cloud was probably still there, so it does tend to skip. Very rarely do we have a tornado like on the ground for 22 miles the whole time. Has it happened? Absolutely. But for us, that's kind of a very rare scenario.
So we had a caller in the 1 o'clock hour, Dave, who said he's in Belleville right now, but he has a house at Lake Egypt, so down south of Marion. And he said that they got torn up down there too. So that would have been a separate tornado, right?
That was a separate one, right. That was about an EF1. It was not on the ground very long, but that was a separate one. And then there were a series of tornadoes way southeast Missouri, southern Illinois. There were probably about 6 of them down there during the same spell. Right now, there are tornado watches from St. Joe through Kansas City, through Springfield, through northwest Arkansas, down into Oklahoma. So there is going to be, already is, a major severe thunderstorm outbreak and tornado outbreak in Kansas, Oklahoma, northwest Arkansas, and western portions of Missouri. The question is, will that hold together? Will it get into the St. Louis area? That's still a big, big question. I am a little concerned of how much sun we see over the next couple of hours. So between now and about sunset, if we see more and more sun, we could get some development over us between 8 p.m. and 1 a.m. tonight. It is not a repeat of Friday, but there could certainly be some more thunderstorms later on today, and there should also be some thunderstorms Tuesday afternoon that could also go severe.
Hey, Dave, this is Brad. It seems like we've been getting a lot of severe weather as of late. Are we seeing more severe weather? Is this about on par? Is it just our perception? What's going on there?
I can answer that with a yes and a no. The problem is that in March, we didn't have much in the way of severe weather, but we had one storm that produced a tornado, and it was a mean one. And April, we've had some thunderstorms, nothing out of the ordinary. In May, which is a huge month for thunderstorms, we've had our fair share. Obviously, it's been kind of wet. but it's kind of depending on the intensity that we get that kind of throws that perception out the window a little bit. But it's been an active season. I wouldn't say that it's been overly active until we got into the month of May.
At what point would you say we're out of tornado season in St. Louis?
Well, I've always had a saying in St. Louis that we can get a tornado anytime, any month, and that's the problem. The core season is April, May, and June. I know people say, oh, can't we get rid of this in June? June is technically one of our wettest months of the year, and it is from thunderstorms. And some of our worst tornadoes in St. Louis, and there's been 3 major tornadoes, 1896, 1927, 1959, they happened primarily in the wintertime. It just all depends on the scenario of what makes the thing go.
So if it's our perception that we've had a worse tornado season by the numbers, by the stats, we have had a worse hail season, though, right?
Yeah, I'll backtrack here. I don't think we've had a worse thunderstorm season. However, we have had a worse hail and a worse tornado season, simply because we've had 2, and they've been strong, and they've caused quite a bit of damage, with the topper being the one on Friday. So far.
This isn't necessarily top of mind right now, but it's just something that I think everybody's been dealing with on top of, now tornadoes and all this hail. But we've had an extraordinarily wet spring too, haven't we?
Yes. Yes, we have. But the key why we haven't seen a lot of flooding, we've seen flash flooding, we've seen some flooding on the Merrimack, but we haven't had the monster thunderstorms up across Iowa, northern Missouri, northern and north central portions of Illinois. We haven't had the big rains up there. And that's why the major rivers have been holding in check. It's been happening around us and points south, so the water continues to flow away. The 93 flood, which everybody remembers who was in town, it all started back in November of 92, but it was because of unbelievable rains across Iowa and northern Illinois that created that setup.
I'm a little bit out of my zone here, but I'm going to ask this anyway. Does this mean that while we haven't seen flooding, that the water table underground is just very high?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
I see where you're going with that, and that's not a bad deduction out of it. With no question, the water table is high. It's just that we haven't had the volume of runoff water that you need to get flooding to our north. That let that water come down the rivers.
Gotcha. Well, Dave, I was looking forward to this conversation all day because mainly the one about the cities. I've heard that so many times that tornadoes don't really hit cities. I wanted to know whether that was true. It sounds like that is false, that tornadoes do hit cities. So, obviously
right.
They do.
You're right. And I don't want anybody to think there is a safe place in severe thunderstorms. Obviously, basement is great. Lower level is great. Inside is great, but there is not a 100% safe location when there is a tornado on the ground, especially in EF2, EF3, EF4. That thing's going to do what it's going to do. So we have to put ourselves in the best, safest location. And the time to think about that is before severe storm season. Now that we've had this big twister, everybody should start to think about, what would I do in this same scenario, in my house, in my school, in my place of work, whatever the case may be. Any businesses that don't have a safe spot need to really think about, where's a safe spot that my employees can go.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate your time and your expertise. Love it. We always get complacent with that stuff, don't we? Any sort of disaster that happens. I've been through tornado. You've been through a tornado.
Yes.
I have not. And so every time one comes near or the alarms go off or whatever, I'm like, okay, we should take it seriously because I know that's what I should do. But in the back of my head, I'm going, nothing's going to happen. And the trouble is, so far in my life, that's been true.
Yeah. The reason that we have that false sense of security is what Dave was talking about there, where how it's just such a pinpoint. So, like, the math of a tornado a mile wide, that's what he said this one here in town was, hitting a house.
That's a huge tornado.
It's a huge tornado, but then you compare it to the size of, say, the state of Missouri, and then it's a very small strip. And then it's like, okay, then it hits this house in this area. So like he was saying, it's a pinpoint thing. But that's why everybody gets complacent and they, I ain't going in my basement. No, take it seriously. Go in your basement, hide from it. He said it's not 100% safe, but it's safer than sitting on your front porch watching it come in.
Yeah, and if you're up high in a building, one of the reports of a death that we heard today was in North City, probably area, Ferguson. It was a guy who was just in the upper half of the house. He didn't go down, and it might have been an apartment. That might have been why. Because a lot of houses, multi-units, that you can't just go down in the basement because it's not your part of the house. But that was one of the deaths, is that house just got destroyed and that guy was gone. So you do have to get low, but it is so easy to get complacent on those things. It's a good reminder for myself.
So don't get complacent.
It's probably a good time to mention, as I'm looking here at 971talk.com, the main link on the page there, 971talk.com, will take you to, it's kind of an article, but throughout the article, we have all these links that you can scroll through to see if there's anywhere that you can either donate things or whether it be bottles of water or whatever. Like, they're going to know how to take that stuff in and then redistribute it if you want to be a part of the cleanup. That's a big thing too, is just debris removal from neighborhoods. If you're not just tuning in now, we took calls in the 1 o'clock hour. And one of the callers, I think it was Sue, she was talking about Central West End and Forest Park area, I think, that there's just so much debris in the roads that it's hard to get things to where they need. So yes, you can have somebody come into your house, but if they can't get to your house, that's a problem. So if you want to be a part of debris removal, there's probably some official ways to do that. If you're a neighbor, I would just go out. I'm not going to tell you to go on the road, but that's what I would do, is I would just start cleaning up, because it sometimes we wait for things.
The thing that you got to be careful for is downed power lines, and they're all over the place right now.
That's a fact. That's a fact. So anyway, that's why we have the resource, 971talk.com. You can see everything and every organization that's already working on this. The Urban League, Salvation Army, Catholic Charities, Archdiocese of St. Louis, already doing this stuff. So get involved if you're hearing these stories like us and you're going, dang, man, it's just bad news. And it was so sudden and so surprising. I guess they always are, natural disasters. YouTube live chat poll today, were you affected by Friday's weather, yes or no? And we are watching your stories come in. We appreciate that. One more segment to go here before the return of Mark Reardon at 3 o'clock. And hopefully we'll see Annie back tomorrow. She just doesn't have a voice today. This is now the Mannie Frey Show.
Annie's out, Ryan and Brad are in. This is the Mannie Frey Show. The Annie Frey Show is streaming online. Watch us live on YouTube and subscribe.
May is a great time to exercise your Second Amendment rights at the Range St. Louis West. If you're a member this month, they're going to double the discount on firearms from 5 to 10%. Membership has its privileges, and accessories are always 10% off, ammo 10% off, classes 15% off. You get free lanes and free rentals with over 120 firearms on the range. Check them out at 14803 Manchester Road or shop online at therangestl.com. If it's time for new windows, there's only one place to call. That is Window World. Mark Cox here. Call my friends at Window World at 314-993-1800 for your free estimate today. If you have any questions, they'll be glad to send someone out to explain all of it to you. You can even schedule right online at windowworldstl.com. You know, there's a lot of high-interest financing out there, but here's what Window World's doing. Right now, they're offering 18 up to 36 months, same as cash financing with approved credit. You can't beat that. You also get a lifetime warranty that covers all of the parts, the glass breakage, and labor. Who else stands behind their product like that? Over half the appointments Window World will set this year are from previous customers or referrals from those customers. That is a testimony to their customer service, their quality, and their commitment to creating loyal customers. That's what you get with Window World. Call them at 314-993-1800, windowworldstl.com.
We all have someone we love, like the favorite lyric in our favorite song. You can't imagine life without them, so tell them today. I love you. Get screened. It could help save their life. Visit cancer.org/getscreened to learn more.
Today's YouTube live chat poll. Were you affected by Friday's weather? This is the last segment of the show. You still got some time to jump on the YouTube page and vote in the poll and leave us a comment telling us, if you were affected, tell us what happened. Tell us your story. We want to hear it. Just vote in the poll and then leave a message, and we'll star it, and we might read it on the air. The time right now is 2:44, and this time check is sponsored by Jerry Kelly Heating and Air Conditioning.
It's time for a $98 AC tune-up.
JerryKelly.com. Annie's out, Ryan and Brad are in. This is the Mannie Frey Show. Follow Annie on X @AnnieFryShow.
Most of the time when we talk about Trump signing something, it's an executive order. Today, he actually signed a bill, an act, called the Take It Down Act. This has to do with deep fake pornography. So, making explicit images out of people who are not actually posing for explicit photographs
or consenting
to it. It was bipartisan, and it is now law that you cannot do that.
Championed by Melania Trump.
Yes, it was. She's in all the press photos. So there you go. Just a little update for you there. A couple other stories to get to here. I brought this one actually last week for Wiggins America, one of our random stories that make you go, what? And I didn't get to it then, but it's just, I don't even know really what to say about it other than just whoa, what? Scientists have now turned lead into gold for the first time ever.
Ooh, alchemist everywhere.
In a breakthrough that would make medieval alchemists envious, it says, Brad. Scientists at Europe's Large Hadron Collider have successfully transformed lead into gold, producing 89,000 atoms per second. That means not that much.
Per second.
Okay.
It's a ratio.
But if your question is how much gold did they make during one period of experiments, I guess this has been going on for 10 years, from 2015 to 2018, the scientists created about 86 billion gold atoms. That sounds like a lot, but when you add it up, scientists said it only weighs about 29 picograms, which is less than a trillionth of a gram. You'd need trillions of times more to even make a tiny little piece of jewelry.
Oh, that's wild.
So I guess we are on the verge of being able to do it.
Here we go. You know what's funny about this to me is the way these colliders work is they do just that. They just smash atoms into other atoms, and you see what sticks and what comes out.
Gold!
It's like what little boys do with
Legos
cars. They just smash them into one another, and then you become an adult, and you smash atoms into one another, and you turn lead into gold.
Yeah, it's so funny because whenever I see a headline like this, I'm totally clicking on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I read it, and I'm like, that isn't going to affect anything.
But you know what? Every major scientific breakthrough starts someplace like that.
Yeah, but, they can really produce lab-grown diamonds now. That's reality. That is happening as we speak. And I just saw a stat that said for the first time in history, last year, I think, was there were more lab-grown diamonds bought than regular diamonds.
Mm.
So that's a huge change in that industry. This just doesn't look like it's ever outside of the Hadron Collider. These things.
The company's going to build a collider and start manufacturing gold.
But if that does happen, that stuff changes markets.
It changes technology. Gold isn't just used for jewelry. It's used in technology. And if you start figuring out how to create rare earth minerals, rare earth minerals that can be created become not rare anymore, and it changes everything.
Mm-hmm. I tried digging with a gold-tipped shovel once.
Yeah.
It didn't work very well.
Minecraft is full of crap.
Gold
wears out way too fast. And they're like, no, this is one of the better ones, and blah, blah, blah. No.
I didn't know that was even a thing. I was just making something up. I remember, weird story. Do you remember baby Jessica who fell in the well?
Yes.
Were you old enough?
I was old enough because I remember we were supposed to go out to dinner that night, and my parents were watching her being rescued, and we just didn't. We just stayed at home and sat and watched them get her out. That was the most crazy thing ever. And then I remember the miniseries that they made afterwards.
What a wild news cycle story that was. And the only thing I remember about it, because what was that, late 80s probably? Had to be.
Yeah, late 80s, because I don't even think
maybe
I was
early 90s.
Yeah.
So I would have been 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there probably.
Yeah, I was 4 or 5.
Really?
Yeah.
You're not that much younger than me, so I probably overestimated.
Yes.
What I remember is watching the story and looking at the size of the well that she fell in and thinking, man, how does a person get in there? She had that was tough. And she was way down there.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to dig her out because the soil was it was Texas, wasn't it? The soil was a certain type that they couldn't.
I was 4 or 5.
You don't remember? This is all from memory. That they had a tough time just digging, which is why it became a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Because normally you go, oh, girl fell in a well and she's okay, or she's at least alive. Let's just dig her around the well and take it out, Well, they couldn't do that because something about the soil, which is why it became a huge story, because they couldn't dig her out. So they had to try to rescue her from the well itself. But here, the part that I remember as a kid is that they started using these jackhammer things, and they were diamond tipped.
Yes.
And that was when I learned, those are really hard.
The ground was really hard, was the issue they were having with digging, I think.
Yeah. So anyway, really weird side story. Do you get a lot of crap in your algorithm online?
Mm-hmm.
Does it know you, or did you just get junk?
Sometimes it knows me, and then sometimes it's like, oh, they must have reset it and it's learning again.
Is there a trend that is hitting for you right now that it's figured out, oh, Brad kind of likes this thing right now?
No.
I have 2.
Oh?
One of them is just watching a level of a Super Mario's game.
I watched a full playthrough of the old NES Ninja Turtles game.
I did too.
It's so
not
good.
Too long ago.
Yeah, it's so good.
Wait, not the arcade game.
No.
The original.
The one on Nintendo.
That game was hard.
Yes, and this guy's like, it's not that hard if you know what you're doing, and then he shows you all these little tricks. You're like, wow.
Yeah, I think the speed run on that's 5 minutes.
It's crazy.
You're like, I spent years on this.
This is only 4 levels?
Yeah, because there were some weird shortcuts.
Yeah, and it's like, don't go in this manhole, go in that one.
So it is feeding you some stuff.
Every now and then, yeah.
I'll watch old video game stuff. But one of the weird ones that it started feeding me, and I think it may have been starting Friday because it was all weekend, because I probably was searching stuff about the tornadoes and wind and things like that, is that it started, weird transition here, it started feeding me things about natural disaster deaths. And there's a certain creator online that takes real stories from American history, and a lot of them recent, not far back, but recent history, the last 70 years. And stories that there is a news report about, but there's no video, or there's very little video.
Okay.
And if there is video, the video is of newscasters talking about it. So there's nothing about the actual story. So he'll take these stories that are legit stories, and he'll make reenactments of them kind of with cartoons. They're not intended to look cartoony, but they're animated.
Stop motion animation?
No, I don't even know if it's stop motion. It's just that it's
or storyboard.
No, it's not even that. It's like something he made on the computer. So the people look like people, but they're just animated.
Okay.
So it's not intended to look like Ren and Stimpy is what I'm saying.
Right.
It's just animated versions of real events. And it's of usually either somebody who narrowly avoided death or somebody who actually did die in a situation. And you're not, even if you had video, you're not going to show it because remember Faces of Death when you were a kid? The videos, they were illegal to show on television.
I know what you're talking about.
And they were like VHSs you could rent. Yeah. And when you're a 8-10-year-old kid, people are like, oh, did you ever see Faces of Death? It was just video compilations of people in death situations. Mm-hmm. And it was like, how grotesque. My mom wouldn't let me watch it, and rightfully so. Like, looking back, I'm like, why did people's moms let them rent that?
Their moms didn't know.
That you're probably right. But anyway, this is a sort of a milder version of that. And the point isn't to be grotesque. It's just to tell this story that you've probably never heard before. And so I started getting these over the weekend. Well, then I went into a rabbit hole. I started watching all kinds of them. And I found one that I'm like, that cannot be real. Because if that were to happen, there's no way somebody could survive that. But the story was that this person survived it. And I looked it up, and I found the actual story from when this happened. I'm not going to show the camera. I'm going to read it to you. In 1990, a British Airways flight 5390, 111-528 FL aircraft, don't know if you need to know that, was traveling from Birmingham Airport in the UK to Malaga Airport in Spain when disaster struck. The aircraft suffered an explosive decompression while flying over Oxfordshire as a poorly installed windscreen panel broke free from the plane. Now, this is the cockpit.
Yeah.
You're following me here?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm saying words and I'm like, I don't even know.
Windscreen is the front.
Okay, so the front of the plane, the poorly installed windscreen, I guess that's the window
windshield
on the front, broke free from the plane, causing its captain to be partly blown out of the aircraft. Amazingly, the other people in the cockpit, and I don't know if it was one or two of them, they assumed this guy's dead. His foot was just hanging on to like a seatbelt or something, and he's just like blown back. I mean, he's barely in the cockpit at all. He's outside the plane. And they're obviously dealing with all this wind, but they're protected a little bit more on the other side.
Right.
So they're like, we got to land the plane. So they're emergency landing. They're dealing with it. They just assume the guy's dead. They land the plane. The dude's alive.
That's wild.
The dude survived being outside the plane, barely hanging on by his foot for the entirety of this flight. There was no loss of life. The captain was pinned against the window frame for 20 minutes with a flight attendant holding onto his legs. They were just hoping that the body wouldn't leave because they assumed he was dead. Crazy, crazy story. And I couldn't believe to look that up and find out that was true. Weird way to end the show, but also a reminder that Annie Frey is not here today.
But that's one of the things, too. You're asking if I ever get sucked down a rabbit hole that I air disasters. I like watching, but it's usually like History Channel's air disasters or whatever, and you can find them on YouTube or something like that. A lot of these weird stories I find because I search them out, and then I was like, oh, I like this channel, subscribe. And then it feeds them to me.
Yeah. So you do get sucked down those things before.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, we are wrapping up this show. Annie Frey, of course, has not been here today simply because she does not have a voice. And we hope that that is remedied by tomorrow. We've played a couple clips of her, well, one clip of her saying, thanks for filling in, I can't talk. So that's why she wasn't here today. The YouTube live chat poll, were you affected by Friday's weather? Yes or no? Brad, you have the results?
Yeah, so it looks like right at this moment with 214 votes, 25% of you were affected, and then 75% of you were not. So about a fourth, which, like, you look at that and say that's not a close poll, but 1/4 of our listening audience was affected by the storms on Friday.
That's more than I thought.
That's a big chunk of people.
That is a lot of people. Well, like we said many times in the show before, if you need help or if you want to help, 971talk.com. We have right on the main page there a link you can click on and see the organizations where I keep saying that you can help, but yeah, if you need help and you're listening to us too, that's a good place to go. Salvation Army is probably one of the top ones that's listed there that is helping. Thank you for tuning in today. Mark Reardon is back, and he is coming up next on 97.1. We will see you tomorrow.
Bad tattoos you won't believe. So kick out the jams, kick up the soul, pour another glass of that rock and roll. Turn up the band, find the hole, gonna lose control tonight. What do you want from me? I'm not a man.
Setting goals for your retirement is one thing, but knowing how to achieve those goals is another.
What are your wishes, hopes, and dreams? What's retirement look like for you? Because everybody, that picture is different.
For tips on building a better nest egg, listen to the All Financial